We're going to call the meeting to order. It is 5 o'clock. And so, Laura Lee, would you please call the roll?
Stu Boyd.
Here.
Denise Chapman.
Here.
Amy Doran.
Here.
Dawn Kirk.
Here.
Barbara Cruz.
Here.
Alexander Lessem. Nancy Rumpel.
Thank you. And Alexandra is just running late,
Okay.
for those of you that... Don, would you please lead us in the pledge? I looked and I said, it says Nancy on my paper. Yeah, I know it's not.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Don. So our first item of business is the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes or corrections to the agenda for today's meeting?
There is.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to take Stu's first and then yours.
All right. Directing your attention to item 4.8. You'll probably recall that in an email I sent a few weeks ago, I felt that we needed to add another item to our Code of Ethics. As I've had a chance to look at the Code of Ethics, the existing Code of Ethics, in more detail, I believe that the first one in the list actually encapsulates what I was going for, and the additional one, the one that I proposed, is more specific.
Okay.
But I believe that the first one in the list actually generally addresses what my concern was, and that I believe, for that reason, I believe we don't need the additional one that I had suggested. So I'm asking that we pull it,
Okay.
discussion of it from the agenda.
Okay, so, all right, and let's listen to what Dawn is asking.
So we need to move number 6.4, the superintendent search update, up to 6.1.
Okay.
Just because of scheduling and when
All right.
is available. And so everything in 6 will stay, it'll just be reordered.
Okay, thank you. All right, I would take, I'm going to take those as sort of as motions, and I just need a second.
Second.
So we have a couple changes to our agenda. And I have a first from, I'm going to say from Stu and Dawn, okay? I guess that will work. And it's been seconded, and I don't know that we need any discussion among us unless you have questions on why we're doing it. Just that Randy's joining us again for this evening for a while. Okay, then I'm going to ask, we did take it as a motion?
So
Okay, yeah, so Laura Lee, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Stu Boyd.
Aye.
Denise Chapman.
Aye.
Amy Doran.
Aye.
Dawn Kirk.
Aye.
Barbara Cruz.
Aye.
Alexander Lessem. Nancy Rumpel.
Okay, thank you. And the motion passes. And
Is
so
Nancy absent or late?
she's absent.
She is absent.
Mhm.
Okay, thank
Oh,
you.
I'm sorry, I thought we had told you. Yeah.
If
All
I
right.
could, if I could just add one other thing quickly. Please note that the item that I am asking to be removed is 4.8, so nothing has to be renumbered.
That is true.
Yeah, don't we have,
There
oh,
is.
we have 4.8, yeah, you're right.
Oh,
But we
nice.
do have agenda issues, yeah. Okay, thank you, Stu.
Yeah, just be
All
the
right.
next guy.
And Sarah, there you are. Would you come up and introduce our school participants? We have a nice crowd up there waiting.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Schaefer, members of the board, Sarah Rasmussen, Interim Assistant Superintendent of Learning Services. And it is my privilege to introduce Principal Lucinda Orr, and she has some very special presenters with her this evening.
Thank you, Sarah.
Welcome, President Cruz, members of the board, and Dr. Schaefer. At Sarah Milner Elementary, we've embraced the 7 habits of highly effective people and integrated Leader in Me into our classrooms for 60 minutes a week. More than a curriculum, these habits have become a way of life personally and professionally. Every classroom has created agreements that guide how we learn and grow together, empower students with leadership skills that help them see themselves as capable and valuable members of school. Throughout this work, we have fostered a culture of belonging where every voice is heard, and leadership is a mindset, not a title. Our first student groups will share how Leader in Me has shaped their daily interactions, helping them listen with empathy, plan with purpose, act proactively, and focus on what they can control. By understanding themselves as individuals, learners, and contributors, they will develop the confidence and skills to lead with purpose every day. Welcome, Sophia, Killian, Blaze, and Nova.
My name is Sophia and I am in first grade. Teach understand. Habit 5 in Leader in Me has helped me to become a better learner and friend. My genius is listening to understand and help others. Hello, my name is Killian and I am in first grade. Being proactive, habit 1 in Leader in Me has helped me become a better learner and friend. My genius is being honest even when it gets hard.
My name is Blaze and I'm in first grade. Putting first things first. Habit 3 in Leader in Me has helped me become a better learner and friend. My genius is reading to learn harder things.
My name is Nova and I am in first grade. Being proactive, habit 1 in Leader in Me has helped me to become a better learner and friend. My genius is doing my personal best to learn and help others.
My name is Becky Amshwan and I am the ELD teacher here at Sarah Milner. As a part of Leader in Me, we focused on helping students discover and celebrate each other's genius, which is one of the paradigms in Leader in Me. This year, we've supported them in identifying what brings them joy and recognizing their own strengths and sharing these talents with one another. Please welcome two of my first grade students, Sophia and Elena, as they share a little bit about themselves.
My name is Sophia. I like to play Roblox. In the future, I hope to be a teacher. Some of my friends are Elena and Ayana.
My name is Elena. I like to play Roblox. Some of my friends are Ayana and Ryder. My strengths are being kind, being a good leader, being a good sister.
Hi, my name is Kristen Williams. I teach 5th grade here at Sarah Milner Elementary, and I'm also one of the student council sponsors. Student council is going to share more about Leader in Me, and they're going to share more about habits and how it resonated with them. Please welcome River. Please welcome Michael, Avery, Candace, Kinsley, and Madeline.
Hi, my name is River and I'm in 5th grade. Habit 1 is be proactive. To me, this means that you are the one that's in charge of you. Being proactive is the foundation for all the other habits.
Hi, my name is Michael and I'm in 4th grade. Habit 2 is being with the end in mind. To me, this means being able to plan for the unexpected.
Hi, my name is Avery and I'm in 4th grade. Habit 3 is put first things first. To me, this means putting the important things first.
Hi, my name is Candace Seducer and I'm in 4th grade. Habit 4 is think win-win. To me, this means that two people or more work together to get what they want. Sometimes it's not what they expect and that's okay.
Hi, my name is Kinsley and I'm in 5th grade. Habit 5 is seek first to understand, then to be understood. To me, this means listen before you react.
Hi, my name is Madeline Strickland. I am in 5th grade. Habit 6 is synergize. To me, synergizing can help everyone cooperate better. When we synergize, we communicate better and give opportunities for everyone to be a leader.
Hi, my name is Kinsley and I'm in 5th grade in case you forgot. Habit 7 is sharpen the saw. To me, this means balance feels best. Also make sure everyone thinks it's fair and feels fair.
As we reviewed our behavior data and referrals, we asked how could we better support students in solving conflicts. We wanted to give them the skills to navigate tough conversations, whether they were the victim or the offender. To do this, we implemented conflict resolution time machine from Conscious Discipline, which aligns with habit 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. This practice teaches students to listen with empathy, help them understand others before sharing their own perspective. It also gives victims a safe space to express their feelings and provides offenders with a clear process to apologize and make things right. By making this part of our school culture, we are turning conflict into opportunities for growth, accountability, and stronger relationships.
Hi, my name is Erin Friel. I'm the Dean of Students here at Sarah Milner Elementary School. At Sarah Milner Elementary School, our lovely, amazing student council members have been playing a really key role in leadership to help us with our conflict resolution. Using the conflict resolution time machine, our student councils help classmates work through issues on the playground and during recess and at lunch. And since many the behavioral referrals it's been a long day. Since many behavior referrals came from these times, the initiative not only addresses conflicts, but also empowers the students to support each other. And by leading restorative conversations, they build a culture of respect, empathy, and problem solving. This is our first step in creating school-wide leadership roles, giving students a voice, and making our school a positive place. And so tonight, our 4th and 5th graders are actually going to model how this works for you.
Today we will be presenting the time machine. This is how it works. First, both people have to be right. And it's both okay, we step to the next one. Second, we stop and take a deep breath. Next, we'll take the next step. Third, we wish well, which means we think of something that makes us happy and we send those feelings to the other person. Okay, we step up to the next one. Fourth, we commit by saying 1, 2, 3, let's do it.
1, 2, 3, let's do it.
Finally, we follow the script on the time machine.
I don't like it whenever you ignore me. Next time, can you please tell me why you're ignoring me? And if you need a break, can you just tell me?
Okay, I can do that.
Today we will be presenting the time machine. This is how it works. First, both people have to be willing. Are you guys willing? Mm-hmm. Second, we stop and take a deep breath. Third, we wish well, which means we think of something that makes us happy and send those feelings to the other person. Ready? Fourth, we commit by saying 1, 2, 3, let's do this. 1, 2, 3, let's do this. Finally, we follow the script on the time machine.
I don't like it when you're mean to me. Can you please not do that next time? I don't like it.
Okay, I can do this. Do that.
No, you're good. Thank you for being a part of our journey at Sarah Milner Elementary. By empowering students with leadership skills and a culture of belonging, we are shaping a school where every child feels seen, heard, and valued. As our 4th and 5th graders modeled these skills tonight, we invite you to see the impact of student leadership in action. Thank you for your support in making our school a place where every student belongs.
Nicely done.
Oh, yeah, we're doing pictures. Okay.
We'll do a picture with
So, my little you can get print of all your meetings. Oh, sure. There you go. We're going to take a picture. Okay. Can I hold it here? Back here? Go right.
You like the staff?
Yeah. Perfect. All right. Picture. Where you're going to go in there?
Yeah.
Girls, watch out for just a second. Mr. Hausman has to get in here.
Sorry, let me slip by you real quick. Need to get about right here.
Okay, now come out. Okay, turn that way.
Okay.
I'm stuck.
Stuck? That's not good. All right, everybody set? Okay, look here for me, right here. Okay, on 3. 1, 2, 3. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. You guys did a great job. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you, Mike.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
second lady.
That'd be great.
Hi.
This is, I was Christina. I couldn't hear, unfortunately.
Take good care.
Oh, okay, so I don't sign. I saw it, but you all sign the same one.
Thank you for coming.
everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Dave. How you doing, young man?
I like it when you
It's just my white cat.
And you went to go to church together?
Absolutely.
Sarah, you guys know this.
Great.
Our granddaughter was one of the doctors.
The tall one.
Okay.
Take care. We'll see you.
Nice
Say
to
hello
meet
to
you.
Barb.
Okay. We are moving into our discussion items for our upcoming board meeting, which will be the 16th. So our first item on our agenda is 4.1, which is Head Start Self-Assessment Report.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Schaefer, members of the board, Sarah Rasmussen, Interim Assistant Superintendent for Learning Services. This evening, Director Lamb Caro, Director of Early Childhood, will be sharing information regarding the self-assessment. And this self-assessment is for Head Start. We have a data collection period of November through February, and then the report is compiled. What you have seen or will see in the report and in this presentation are areas of strength that have surfaced during the data gathering, as well as recommendations. So I will turn this over to
Thank you, Madam President, Dr. Schaefer, members of the board. I'm Lamb Carroll, Director of Early Childhood, and I'm proud to be here because we do some really good work in early childhood, and so what I'm excited about to share that with you. So our first one is about student achievement. Essentially, our goal doesn't change very often, but we want to make sure that students are prepared for kindergarten and beyond. And then the second part is really a focus of stewardship of our resources. We want to make sure that our resources are in alignment with the objectives of the program for the school year, the 5-year grant period, and the Thompson School District. So we want to make sure that that system runs pre-K through 20. So the information I provide to you is that this is an annual thing that we are required to do by Head Start. What it has us do is take a comprehensive look at our program. And from that, we write a quality improvement plan that is based on the recommendation of the self-assessment team. And that team consists of parents, staff members, district staff, and the community. The next slide, please. Oh, there it is. Sorry. The annual self-assessment is to ensure the program is on track, and we are accomplishing the goals that we set forth at the beginning of each year. And more importantly, it helps us answer the questions about have we met our progress and our objectives, our family engaged in what we're doing, are there any systemic compliance issues that need to be addressed, and more importantly, do we have any successful innovations that we can share with other programs. And the nice thing, I'm just going to put in a plug that we do, because we are always recommended by Head Start to have other programs come and visit the work that we do in our program. And more importantly, the last piece is that we want to make changes to our work if we need to, and that's a part of our continuous improvement cycle. So our strengths is that we are happy to refer families for medical and dental support, because we found a lot of families don't have access to that, and by able to provide that, we actually had almost 100% compliance, or not compliance, sorry, 100% of our families took advantage of that support. One that surprised me, and we work hard on standard precautions, but when the health department came back and licensing said that our health, how we handle food is really done well, I thought, oh, that's great. Student safety is a priority for our program, as well as strong community connections and partnerships. And then the one thing that we do have that sets us apart from other programs, I think, is that we have highly qualified staff that support our students. And then in alignment with the rest of the district, we make sure that we have targeted school readiness in math, literacy, and social development, in particular with social development, because a key part of our work that we do is help students develop their executive function, because once we can get that, we can really get at the business of learning.
Len, if I could just, because I don't want it to get lost, so obviously all of our staff are highly qualified, but this means something a little different, right?
Correct. So most of our teachers already have their masters in early childhood special education, or they attained it as a part of their early child degree in addition to their regular bachelor's. And then our ECT staff, that's our paraprofessionals, they would actually be qualified to teach, to be the lead teacher in a private center. But for us, that means that's our paraprofessional, and then we have the expertise of a teacher that's gone through a 4-year or 6 years worth of education. So, before I get into the recommendations, I just want to make a comment about the results of what we did last year. And I'm super proud of the work that we did last year. We accomplished almost everything that we did, and I should add that most of the work that we accomplished last year will continue. But these are things that we identified that we're going to work on for this upcoming school year. And I just want to put a plug out that this is part of the new ongoing 5-year grant that will be starting next year. So a lot of the work doesn't change, but it continues on. So you'll see a little bit of blend of what we learned through our program this year and things that we have to do tied to the new 5-year grant period. So for health, we want to improve the process for revision, screening, and screening follow-up, and that's just rooted in the fact that we had parents who already, so for example, we had parents that said, yes, my child's been through it, but we discovered is that we just need to be clear that even though their child may have eyewear already, they still need to go back for further screening, so that was the part that we discovered. We want to revisit and retrain the use of family-style meals as part of our nutritional services, and retrain staff on the integrated nutritional program that we have as part of our ongoing learning. And really that's it. We took I should have said this right at the beginning. We looked at what sustainability looks like in the program, because what we realized is that things that we have done in the past, we need to come back and revisit periodically to ensure that they're being done to fidelity. So on the next slide, we are focused really on safe environment. So one of the things that's come up as something that's been reported a lot is that there's been a lot more incidences reported across the country about things happening with students because of a lack of active supervision. So I'd like to say that we're not one of those programs because we maintain a focus on that. And then as a part of the new grant period, we're required to complete the health and safety screener for our program, which is a comprehensive look at not only our practices, but our facilities as well. So if we need to make corrections, we'll do that. With transportation, one of the things that we're going to explore this upcoming year is a transportation waiver, because what that will allow us to do is to transport more kids on the buses rather than being constrained by what the current requirements are by licensing. In our exceptional student services, we want to assess and streamline screening, child find evaluations, and classroom evaluation processes across the early childhood program. Because with the addition of universal preschool, that's created some new opportunities to screen more kids in the classroom. So we're trying to find ways to make that more efficient and quicker. With our mental health piece, we're revisiting we want a presentation that we share with staff that re-examines the purpose of positive behavior intervention supports, particularly addressing social and emotional competence and challenging behavior in the classrooms. We want to provide additional social emotional learning teachers and resources to our teachers, and that includes the addition of, in alignment with the Character Strong curriculum that's being implemented in a lot of our schools. And then finally, we're looking at our staff, and so we want to take a closer look at what kind of staff stressors and relief opportunities can we provide for them in the upcoming school year. So for example, that might be more scheduled check-ins, opportunities to talk with other people, and that kind of thing. For our family and community services, we want to get really into the measurement of what we're doing makes a difference with our families. So instead of just looking at the number of families that are attending our events, we want to know what we're doing is make a difference at home and at school. So we're redoing our metrics to re-examine that. And then that ties directly to the effectiveness of our family engagement activities. I just want to share a piece that I met with a parent today that had been resistant to joining our program, and then, so I will, when they contacted me, I thought that this was, it's gonna be one of those tough conversations. But what they wanted to say to me is that we wish we had come in sooner because the growth we've seen in our child in the last 3 months makes us wish that we had started right at the beginning instead of waiting till the end of the or mid-year. So that was a good, positive feedback. With our education, tied to our work with literacy, we were really focused on the science of reading using our approved materials. And then more importantly, how does it flow from pre-K to kindergarten and beyond that? Fiscal management, we are revisiting and updating our policies for the Head Start program. We started this work last year, and it's going to take some time to make sure that we have that in place. But we're in a good place right now because we're working closely with business services and our early childhood staff. My program design, I'm excited about this part because we really have some traction going here. But we're looking at our program staffing as part of the preschool through 3rd grade initiative, and really looking at what kind of services are we providing from preschool through 3rd grade. So that's just one tiny component of this very large piece that we're taking on. And then finally, with eligibility, recruitment, selection, enrollment, and attendance, we want to really streamline the process so we're not stopping families and kids from enrolling in the program. We want this to be as easy and accessible as possible so we can get them in the program as soon as possible.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let me check questions.
Okay.
Stu, do you have any questions to start with? Amy?
Can you speak a little bit about the transportation waiver?
Yeah. So we're really limited. What holds us back from transporting more students is that there is a rule about how many kids you can have on the bus, plus how many adults are on that bus to transport.
Okay.
So when you hit a certain number, you have to have an additional staff member on the bus. If you can apply for the waiver and get it, which it sounds like a lot of other districts are able to do, you can put an additional 5 students on the bus to transport them.
Without
the other adult. So that's the part we're looking for. Because we have the ability to put more restraints on, but you can't put more kids on the bus without more kids without more adults.
And so you apply for the waiver through Head Start?
You apply for the waiver through the Colorado licensing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And does that affect our transportation department at all?
What would it allow, I believe, is that would allow more kids to be transported without having to create more new routes.
Gotcha.
And so taking advantage of the resources we already have and putting more kids on the bus is what it comes down to.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Alexandra? Hi, by the way.
Yeah.
I do have a question about the revisit, retrain the use of family style meals. I'm curious about, like, has there been difficulties with that? Or, because I think that's such a cool part of the program and such a great, builds so many skills as far as like interpersonal skills, fine motor skills, gross motor skills, all the stuff like that. So I'm just sort of curious what was the impetus for putting that there?
So it's tied directly back to our sustainability model.
Okay.
So we have so many staff, and what we realize is it helps to revisit things throughout the period, especially in, I know we talk a lot about the post-COVID hangover, but there is some of that still happening. And so because of COVID, like one of the changes that we had to make is that we couldn't do family style anymore. Because the rule changed to that you have to serve the food individually to each child, right? And so we couldn't pass food around, so there was limitations. And so coming back to it, because you're exactly right, the reason why I want to make sure that everybody understands that is because it's not only about learning how to interact socially, but it was also opportunities to talk about what did you learn today, revisits from prior learning and those kinds of things. So, and really the other piece is then developing that independence for each child. Because I'll admit, it gets a little messy at times, right? There's some cleanup. But, from where they start at the beginning of the year, where they end, it's incredible. And, the fact that you can, when you start hearing, when you think about where they start and at the end of the year, you hear, can you pass me the carrots, please? and they serve themselves, and then they go, what did you think about the carrot? So they're having these conversations about food. I mean, it really, every time I hear different things, I'm so impressed with what they can do.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's what it's directly tied to, because it's a really a great opportunity to keep learning going.
Sure. Awesome. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Denise?
So in terms of numbers, so what percentage are you in early childhood now? Are you like 100% every seat is being utilized, or?
So what happens throughout the school year is that we fill our classrooms as we go. So certain years, it depends on the year too. We can pack classrooms, but a lot of times we can't, because we have to hold spaces for students when they turn 3. So we have students that we already know that are coming to our program that we have to reserve seats for because they qualify for special education services. So you might walk into a classroom example. I'm going to use Sarah Milner since we're here. You could walk into that classroom, and in the morning you can see that there are 13 kids in the morning, 13 kids in the afternoon, and you think, oh, there's some more spaces still. But those 3 are held because throughout the school year we know that we have 6 kids that are going to come, and we're going to fill those in. So this year, if you're asking a question about are our seats filled, we're getting filled. I do think that we're going to run out of seats by the end of the year. So, but there are some years where we have to maintain a wait list because we just have more students and less seats, or not enough seats to support that. So.
And so the just projections for next year is to?
So we are doing some right sizing right now. So with UPK, the first year, we went gangbusters with applications. And so what switched that for this year right now is that because there are a lot more centers that have opened, there are more seats available in the community. So for example, if you've been down in Berthoud, there's a new learning experience center that just opened. So the seats they can offer, I think they have 4 or 5 classrooms in there. So it takes anywhere between, if they're at capacity, they can take up to 20 kids per classroom. So that changes where people make choices about where they want to go. The one thing that I want to emphasize for us is that we're focused on preschool, and school is the key word there. So we really want kids to be prepared academically, and so our enrollment for our program for this upcoming school year is going pretty well. At this time, compared to last year, we're already ahead of last year. So we're feeling pretty good about where we're headed. Yeah,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Don?
It's more like just a wish, which is that this is so thorough and rigorous, and then of course you have this attention to detail to do it even better than I would if I were doing the same assessment. And I just think about all the times that we want to share best practices and how many of them are already embedded in this, and then you're checking for it and you're thinking of that continuous improvement, how do we make it better, and I just love that, and so I really would just love to see more of this, that the concept of that as something that other people can embrace, because it's something that you do because it's part of the model. It's not set that, none of our other systems have this level of kind of review in this way, that holistic view, and I just think it's really cool, like how you find these things that are so meaningful because you're looking at it from every angle.
Yeah, it is really good work, so thank you.
Well, thanks for doing a good job.
Do you have to do also a unified improvement plan? Am I saying that right? Is it unified as well, or is it the same, one and the same?
We use the grant as that.
Okay, that's what I was curious about. All right, thank you. And I think you're up again for the
proclamation.
Right, the proclamation that we have. And will we read it?
We don't read it tonight, but we'll definitely read it.
But yeah, will you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah,
so that all of them know and the audience would know.
Yeah, so every year, the Week of the Young Child is a chance just to honor not only the students that we work with, because really we know that if we can get to kiddos early, we can make a huge difference by the time they get to 3rd grade. So it was really putting the lens on the work that all early childhood educators do with our students to make sure that our kiddos are ready for kindergarten and beyond that. But I also want to point out that it's not just students. It's about helping families be supportive of their child as they go through the educational system. So I am proud of the work that not only in our district, but all early childhood educators. And so for us, the way we're going to do it this year is we want to honor the kids at their home. So in conjunction with Philo and with Loveland Read Aloud, we're going to provide every child in our program 3 books to read at home with their kids during the week of the young child. So that was a nice gift that we hope that they'll build some other future practices and have as a part of their everyday program.
Good. Thank you. Any questions about a resolution? It'll be read next time.
Okay. I do have a question about something you just said. Will the Berthoud community be included in this?
Yes, it involves all of the Thompson School District.
Okay.
Community. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Let's wrap up all the papers now.
I just realized I was way too loud when I tried to do it earlier.
I know. It's my friend. All right. 4.3 is the appointment of the district auditor. It came with a lot of information, so have at it, Bob.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Schaefer. In the continuing transparency efforts, we are giving you probably more than you would ever want, but we received 5 proposals for the auditor, proposal for the current fiscal year with the understanding that that would possibly continue for the following 4 years. Review committee looked at all the proposals, ranked them before looking at the price proposals, as is done during the RFP process. We are recommending the CLA as the auditor because they are, as Mark and I talked, they have a greater bandwidth than the other auditors, even though they are at a higher price. We believe that after last year's audit, that there is a need to continue the work that was done at that point. We expect it's going to be a good audit process, having hired Plant Moran to do a lot of the additional work for reconciliation that you'll hear a little bit after this one, in addition to providing assistance and creating new systems. Even just as the presentation just before me, working with Head Start, making sure all of the financials are correct on that one too, working with that. So we'll be asking you at the next board meeting to approve the audit selection of the Clifton Larson Island. Any questions on any of the proposals?
Start with Amy. Do you have any questions on it?
I do not. Thank you. I'm just curious, one of the times that Plant Moran was here, they talked about the audit and said that they sometimes help work with the auditing firm. I don't remember the details, but is this are they comfortable with this company? Not too comfortable, right? But the appropriate amount of comfortable.
They are. It's they were actually comfortable with all 3 of the firms. They are preparing us, and in fact, we're expected to get the proposed list that we will get from the next auditor for saying, here are all the things that you need to give to us from the finance department. And that gives us an attempt to get things in advance. In addition, Plant Moran said they will share their work papers for the past audit, so we can actually see how did they get to a certain point if we have a question.
Okay. Denise? No question. I don't have a question, it's just that there was a lot of information that was shared. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Stu?
I don't.
No questions. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think you stay for this next part too?
Yes.
I thought so. It will be item 4.4, and it's the first reading of regulation DKBR, and it's tax deferred savings plan.
That's correct. So in the board policy, you authorize as part of the fringe benefits to staff tax deferral deductions from employees' paychecks. 401K, 457, and 403B are the various plans that we have. Looking at them, as we were trying to update various board policies, we identified various items that need to be updated, including the ability to give the employees to have a flat amount. Right now, the policy said you had to do a percentage amount, which that's actually easier for us because if your salary goes up and down, it's always the correct amount. What this proposal does is allows this as another option. We ran this by our legal counsel. They came up with others suggested, including a disclaimer that we are not tax professionals. We will not give tax advice to our employees, but we do encourage them to plan for their retirement in addition to para. So in many ways, it really is housekeeping changes when the things have to be submitted to the various places, to us or to para, to make sure that things get done on a timely basis.
Okay. Questions? Alexandra, anything?
No.
How about over here?
No.
Questions?
Just a comment, I think it's important that people have as many options as possible, so I'm glad that we're offering that.
The other thing that did not require board approval, we are now offering a Roth opportunity, which is post-tax. That's when we say we're not going to give you advice, but how much are you going to make in retirement? If you're going to make a lot of money, a Roth makes sense. If you're going to make less money, a 403B or 457 does. That's the extent of tax advice I will give anybody.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Then 4.5 is the 2018 bond reconciliation review.
Yes.
And is Todd coming for that too, or is
We have three people.
Three people.
Me,
Okay.
Todd, and we
Come
have
on up.
Amanda from Plant
good.
Brand. So we're bringing in the big guns.
Yeah, I guess. Hi. Nice to see you again.
Thank you, you too.
And Amanda will actually be driving the initial part of the discussion, and then Todd and I are available for questions beyond her presentation.
Yeah. Yep. Alrighty. I don't know who's controlling the slides.
I am.
Okay.
That's magic.
Yeah. Okay, so I would say reconciling this bond program over the past since 2019 all the way to 2025 was something we were asked to do. And just to kind of set the stage a little bit, when we're talking about the bond program, the scope of that is more than just the bond funding, the projects that were funded with bond funds. There are a lot of different sources that were pulled into this scope. And then really our charge was to go through and paint the picture of where all of this activity fell in the general ledger. And because it involves so many different funding sources, that was a tall order. And also many years of activity. And really one of the places that we started, and we were so fortunate to have the records that the bond program and bond director kept, very detailed records of every PO and every invoice. So that gave us a really good starting point to be able to trace it through the general ledger. So what you see here is the reflection of the general ledger and that general ledger activity cumulative over those 5-6 years. So we see the bond proceeds, that should be a very familiar number to everyone for the 149. The premium of about 29 million, the interest of about 6 million, that's interest year to date. Then it pulled in about 15.6 billion in grants. Some of that was ESSER, a lot of that is BEST. And using all of those grants funds, pulling all of that in, it's sitting, you actually have two grant funds in your district, a federal grant fund and a state grant fund. There were also some local grants that were pulled in there, like from the Colorado Health Foundation. Asset sale proceeds included sales of buildings, and it also included sales of water shares, of like water rights. So
those proceeds actually came into, depending on the proceeds, so your water share proceeds go into the Fund 27, the local reserve fund, and then the proceeds from your building sales go into your capital projects fund. From there, they were transferred into the building fund and then spent.
And as we talked about at the last board meeting, I gave you the listing of all the different funds we have. And that's what some of this discussion is which fund did it go into and how did it get transferred between.
Right. And so you can see, right, like the proceeds come in, it gets complicated, and one of the attachments here was that multi-fund look where you've got the funds across the top and the revenue and expenditures down the bottom, so you can start to see the complexity of the program. So total sources in the ledger, and then the vendor sites, the PILO, and then there were sub-transfers from the capital projects fund as well mixed in there. So total sources were $209.8 million, almost $209.7. Then the bond issuance costs are true expenditures. So then you take those out. At the end of the day, your total net sources available after issuance costs are $28.9 million, and so far, sorry to see this, 29.2 has been in the uses and expenditures. So that basically means that there's been $284,000 spent more than was available to spend.
Okay.
Spent or encumbered. Yeah.
Okay.
So why? And this was a big piece of the project, is to be able to not just tell you, here's what the ledger says, but sort of, so what happened? So sources came in about 1.4 million lower than planned. There was originally $253,000 planned in ESSER funds. Didn't end up being used on these projects. Some of that, it looks like, was a result of some accounting adjustments that were made. In order to have ESSER fund revenue supporting the cost, that cost needs to be sitting and charged against the grant. At the end of the day, that's not what happened. So that it was charged, and then it was actually moved back to Fund 41, and that's kind of where you start to see, a little bit of like the information transfer start to break down between what was happening in the ledger and what everyone was sort of tracking in terms of operationally. $203,000 about in planned sale proceeds from Ferguson were not actually ever transferred to the building fund for use. Those are still sitting over in the capital projects fund. Again, $66,000 of PILO funds were not used, which was something that was planned, a planned expenditure that just didn't get charged over to the PILO funds. So those are still sitting there. And then they did have about $93,000 in disallowed BEST grant costs, and that was just because of a performance period constraint, meaning once BEST awarded the grant and said, expenditures that the BEST grant can support will happen between this date and this date. Those expenditures actually, I think, were before and fell outside of that date range. So at the end of the day, those expenditures exceeded the revenue. They ended up not getting in the amount of revenue that was awarded. Then not being able to go back and review, communications from the past or anything like that. There was confusion and just some miscommunication about the bond issuance costs. In certain versions of some of the tracking documents, we see those bond issuance costs being netted against a higher premium number, and in others they're being taken out of expenditures. So it is a driving component of this bigger variance that we're seeing, but we're not 100% sure how or when or why that happened. It looks like potentially the bond premium that was communicated years ago was too high than the actual premium that came in. Any questions on those? Okay.
Any questions? Dawn? No, she's thinking, I can tell.
Well, I guess the question I have is like, in some of these cases, it sounds like the money is sitting in another fund.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not as if it's just gone and we're
Correct.
short. It is, and
In some
it's the
cases.
audit that's
Yeah.
finding that these things maybe didn't get looked over and things like that.
Yeah, so like in the instance of the Ferguson proceeds,
Yeah.
those are still sitting in the capital projects fund. And then you'll see when we get to the recommendations piece, that one of the recommendations is to get that back over where it belongs, yeah.
You read my mind. You're
Yep.
good. Okay,
So
thank you.
you sort of have explanations of all of this?
In
Somewhat.
addition, the ESSER funds were spent on something that was legitimately charged to that grant.
Correct.
So
Okay.
that's not gonna have to be
Okay.
pulled back or anything else like that. It just was not charged to the bond grant, it was charged to
Oh,
something
gotcha.
else.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Stu?
No.
Amy? Alexander?
I'll wait till the end.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Should've known
So there are some remaining needs. So we did see, right, that the total costs have exceeded the total available sources by about $285,000. In addition to that, the bond program still has a few projects that need to be finished. Again, these were projects that were, Todd, I'm looking to you too for kind of the technical vernacular here. They were approved by the board, but were not necessarily originally part of the bond scope itself.
Yeah, they were part of the bond contingency scope that we went through and reviewed back in October of '23. So they were in that contingency scope that we approved projects.
So it's not as if, right, there weren't enough bond funds to get through the bond projects that were committed to. This is kind of above and beyond that. So part of these costs, just to run through them, are the year-to-date costs we know exceed available sources. There's also year-to-date bond management costs that I believe are sitting over in the general fund or cap projects fund. It needs to be moved over. The future bond management costs of the staff to get through these last few projects, and then the 3 projects that still need to be worked on with the Big T water intrusion, Loveland High School ball fields, and the playground replacement, for a total of about $1.6 million in remaining needs. So recommendations are split into 2 pieces. The first one is just the more immediate recommendation to address unfunded needs. The first recommendation is to transfer the residual $1.4 million from the water right sale proceeds in the land reserve fund to the building fund. So for a little bit of background, the total water sale proceeds were $3.8 million between 22 and 23, of which 1.5 has been transferred. So that leaves about 1.4 remaining.
And that was previously approved by the board for Conball, so we actually put those proceeds towards the Conball project.
Yep.
Okay.
And then transfer that additional $202,000 of the residual proceeds from Ferguson out of the capital projects fund into the building fund to use on those remaining bond program costs. So then longer term improvements to consider, and I, yes, if another bond ends up being issued or something like that, but I think this will help in addition to a lot of the grants that facilities has been seeking and winning, that these will improve more than just bond management in its traditional sense. So for a little bit of background here, when we're talking about information and everyone's ability to make the best decisions possible, you need to have the best information and the most current information that exists. And the source of truth with anything with money is going to be the general ledger. Right now, the reporting doesn't exist in Business Plus, although it could. It's a very powerful system to provide project managers and facilities folks and folks within programs with the information that they would need to help manage their budgets based on the information that's actually in the general ledger. So while facilities was pulling in and our bond program folks were pulling in information that they knew from their POs and their invoices
that's just when you're putting it into the general ledger, it hits that code when it's booked, but there are journal entries that can happen after that. And so we really want to get to a point to where the project managers would be empowered to be able to really self-monitor the budgets of their projects. Now, in order to do that, there would be some changes that would need to happen within the system to make sure that there were unique identifiers built into the system. So like a project code. So a project manager could say, you know, I'm managing project 1, 2, 3, 4. I want to run the report and I can see exactly where I am budget to actual and make sure that everything landed where it needed to be. Another key piece there is to hold the monthly meetings between finance staff and bond management to review that detailed actual activity as compared to the expected activity, with everyone working from the same information and the source of truth being the general ledger. And then making sure that all discrepancies are resolved in the general ledger in a timely manner. So sometimes, you know, you might see that, oh, this is charged to the wrong place and it needs to be moved over here. There would need to be, you know, work from both sides to make sure that that occurred by the next meeting and everybody saw it and confirmed that it occurred. I do think, just for a little bit of context here as well, there were meetings that were occurring between bond management and finance. However, when it came to some of the activity in the general ledger, it can get very complicated when you're in the middle of a construction project because timing is everything, right? You could be looking at something where the revenue hasn't come in yet, which we're working on with finance as well, to really make sure that the timing of some of these bookings is happening as it should. But there are some timing considerations, and I do think that played into this a little bit of thinking this must just be a timing issue and moving on from there. So hopefully that provides some good context. At the end of the day, you know, everything was present and accounted for, and we were able to get it there, starting with the great detail that facilities was keeping, and make our way through many transactions to be able to provide you with the summary of where everything fell in the ledger.
And as a result of what work Amanda did, Zach and Todd's staff have been holding these meetings already. So that has created the model for what is going forward. Zach has some plans for how the accounting system should be structured so that will be able to be reported. I'm always hesitant to give people the opportunity to run a report if it's not set up properly to begin with. So we'll want to make sure that's there, but once we give it, it's like, before you submit the PO, have you checked the general ledger? Do you agree with us? Did we do something differently? We got a bank statement, we did something different. Do you agree with that?
Makes sense. All right, do you have any specific questions, Don? Me either. How about over to Stu? Amy?
No, thank you.
So sort of to Don's point, just to clarify, it sounds like mostly this was sort of like the discrepancies are largely based on like communication breakdowns and then like some not quite, you know, getting things exactly where they should be.
Yep.
Not like mismanagement or anything like that.
Nope. Nope. That's exactly right. It's a good way to say it.
Okay.
Now, the items were purchased and delivered. Grant funds were properly reported, and everything's there. It just was, where was it?
Right. Yep. Oh.
And I would just say one more than that. I mean, it was delivered, but 149 promised and 209 and change delivered. So I think that's the piece that
It was confusing all the time.
That's the piece to be aware of.
Yeah.
Because the promise from when you look at what the voters passed and what we promised to do was there, and this is really fine tuning than the other 60-ish million that was above and beyond what was promised.
Yes. Yep. I guess I do have a question. So the recommendations that you've made, these 4 recommendations, sounds like number 3 is in progress. Are the other 3 doable for? I mean, are we
Transferring the funds, yes, that would be.
So
that
we can
will actually
accomplish all 4 of
Yes,
these?
that will actually be a vote before you at your next board meeting.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're
We
welcome.
appreciate your coming and sharing with us again.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Oh, question.
Yeah?
Yes, she did.
Also based off of your answer somewhere in there, which is that I'm also kind of hearing an underlying thing of the fact that there's multiple sources of information. Even in the cleanest version, that's gonna happen. You gave some examples of it. I worry a little bit about some of the things I've seen lately that feel like we're having additional outside sources who are trying to also impact how we're reporting things. And so I'm hoping that is captured somewhere in your findings as well, because if we are talking about having a single source and that's part of what you're finding, like a root cause of this finding, then I'm really concerned about us adding some of those back in, even if it's good, well-intentioned. And I've been concerned about that the whole time. I know I've said that to you already, but like now's the time to build it clean and to build it well and to, as you said, like try this and talk about it and meet about it and make sure. And so if we do all of that and then we're still having multiple sources of who's got the right answer besides the people who have the right answer, then we're going to end up in this or worse.
So part of what we are proposing, and Zach has come up with some proposals for this, is before anybody applies for a grant, there's a form that says who's going to be in charge of it, what it's going to be spent with, what is the account code going to be, who is the programmatic responsible person, who is the financial person. The position, the additional grant coordinator that you approved in the January budget, that will be part of the assignment of that position plus the other two, so that every grant will be assigned to a person and we'll be able to say what's going on. And so therefore you get the not only to have one source of truth being the general ledger, you're gonna have one source of person who will be doing that as well.
That'd be nice. I mean, I'm sure as you were chasing some of this down, trying to find 6 years worth, wouldn't it have been nice if that was one person for all of that?
And just the natural requirement of accounting for capital projects to be in one place, state grants and federal in other places, and we're using all three sources for one project. Now, the fact is that we have complicated projects, it's expensive, and you need all sources. So we just need to make sure that we're doing those all at the same time. Do you do a percentage charge to all three at the same time? Do you exhaust one grant completely and then go to the next one? Sometime a grant doesn't allow you to do that. That would be on that initial grant form saying what are the conditions of this grant and how can it be spent.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thanks.
Sure, thank you.
And I think Todd stays for the next piece. Okay, so the next piece is 4.6 is the project budget contract approval for Loveland High School.
Yes, good evening, Madam President, Board of Education, Dr. Schaefer, Todd Piccone, Assistant Superintendent of Operations. Tonight for discussion is some accessibility needs at Loveland High School. So to ensure all our facilities are welcoming, safe, and inclusive, that's what this work aligns to. So just a little background as we just kind of talked about, in October of 23, the board approved the project at Loveland High Fields. Remember right, there was an IGA with the city of Loveland for 100 years, the lease was filled out so Loveland High could get a softball and baseball field on site. So since that time, we've been working through the design, and what we found here recently was just to finish this design and ensure that there are truly ADA accessible routes to the fields, around the fields, that we are walking away from that with an ADA accessible site. So that is really, well, as we go to the next slide, that is really what this work entails. You can see that that's really the project scope there. That's what it'll look like in the end. This additional scope will then make sure that there's ADA access to the fields from the parking lot, which entails a little more than we anticipated because we're actually having to work with the city a little bit on some stuff that's not quite accessible there. The summary is we just want to walk away and making sure that this was truly accessible to our community. So in saying that, our proposal is to take this out of payment in lieu of for about $575,000 to complete this plaza and ADA work that's going to be around the fields. So that'll be for action consent in the next meeting. This is just to tee up what we are planning on for this project.
Wow. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Questions? I don't have any to start with, Stu.
No, thank you.
Denise? Alexandra, I thought I saw you.
No, I was
Oh.
sort of thinking, but
Well, we can slow our track down.
it's fine.
Okay,
I'm good.
okay. And now we invite, is Kristen here? I thought I saw her come in.
Yes.
Okay. We're at 4.7 is the energy performance contract review.
Yes, thank you again, Madam President. As the board is aware, we've been going through quite some options for energy performance contracting. So tonight we've come up with a solution that is super exciting. I hope the board's there with us, but I can say staff is super excited about the options we came up with here. So I'll let Kristen work through this, and just a kudos to Kristen and her team. This has really been a long process, like years in the making, to get to this point to move forward. So really thank you to her and her team, because it's it's a 5-minute presentation that really has hours of work behind it. So.
All right.
All right. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Schaefer, Kristen Batiki, Director of Operations. As Todd said, we're really excited to be here, super excited to be here with a project that we're really proud of. Looks a little different than the last time that we were here, but we really think this is a good option for the district. So just to start that Strive 2025 connection, aligning resources to reflect the needs identified in the strategic plan. The great thing about this project is it puts more efficient systems in place, improves our learning environments with better lighting, and really is a great way to get these projects and improvements in our schools.
Cool.
So here is the contract timeline. We have provided a little bit of a simpler one than the loop-de-loop that we've seen in the past.
Yeah.
And I looked at it
Did you
yesterday.
do this still?
I know. And it was like,
Likes
the
this
energy
job.
office provided us. They're like, this. We feel like this is better for you. And
Yeah.
yes, for me, it's certainly better. So as Todd said, we've been working on this for a few years now. I do want to acknowledge we have Paige Spurk with Schneider Electric, Melissa Carroll, our energy resource manager, and also I want to give a big shout out to finance as well. Both Zach and Bob have been amazing helping us work through this, really diving right in. So here's that timeline here. We are in the spring 2025 stage right here, so that this model for funding is using those future energy savings to finance the project. So we're at that point where we hope we can approve the energy performance contract and all of the financing that goes along with that to get these projects in place this summer to get, start those energy savings and get those classroom improvements. So on the left-hand side of this screen is our original 8 sites, which include lighting improvements as well as water. We had originally had solar as part of this project. Because of the uncertainty around that federal tax credit, we just couldn't rely on that. And so we took a step back from the project, really assessed, and based on House Bill 231161, where we know we need to move to LEDs in our schools as well. That's one of those pieces. So that compliance, by putting lighting in our buildings, that payback, it comes back very quickly. So getting those savings back to the district, and also, as I mentioned, the classroom environment, in our schools, really improving the lighting. So we're excited to be able to expand it to an additional 12 sites. We're just looking at lighting for those sites. It's not quite the entire district, but it's most of those sites, and gets us really set on that path. Cool. So we have been continuing to fine tune this piece even up to yesterday, today, as we're working with that, and we'll have those final numbers for approval on the 16th. And so the total project cost is approximately $5.5 million. The selected lender, Bank of America, was willing to extend their rate, so they held that rate through April 30th, so that we could we didn't have to go through that process of going back out to RFP, and it's still a great rate. The interest rate is no more than 4.5%.
596. So we were looking at some different term rates, and I see that that was adjusted. We were looking at a 16. As far as that cash flow, it's it'll be more in the 19 to 20 year. So the financing term 16 to 20 years. And then additional funding, we are anticipating some utility rebates from those water projects. So it's not really significant as we look at the scope of this project, but somewhere around that $20,000 range.
Wow. Good.
So the measurement and verification, so that aspect of having the Colorado Energy Office really behind this program and really encouraging school districts to look at this. There's measurement and verification to make sure that the savings that we're projecting for this project, that Schneider is projecting for us, we're actually seeing those in the schools. And so this program includes 3 years of measurement and verification. We can extend that if we wanted to. It's at a cost. At that point, at the 3-year point, there's typically other factors that come into play. Perhaps adding air conditioning to a building where the energy costs go up. So there's other things that play into that. And so that's how the savings are determined on there. It still says the solar on there, which is if we were including solar, which we're not in this iteration of the project. So next steps, the board approval and execution of the energy performance contract. We are hoping for that approval on April 16th, and then that financing closing will be by April 30th. That's when the bank rate is held for us. We're looking at April 24th, and then the implementation the summer of 2025.
Okay.
Any questions?
Questions? I think we start with you, Stu.
Not a question, but I'm glad to hear in your presentation that you explained what 3 years of M&V was. I Googled it, I couldn't find it. So I'm glad to know that that's measurement and verification. Thank you, Kristen.
Google didn't solve your
No,
problem.
Google for
Wow.
once didn't know what it was.
No, congratulations. It was a super exciting, like, I mean, you know, it's good, so thank you.
So I have a question that I don't know if you're the right person to ask or not, but reading through the contract, I will readily admit I did not read every single word that was in there. But what I'm curious about is that it talks about it being a lease. So like what exactly is it that we're leasing? And if, you know, a lease has like a term, so theoretically, like if the lease ends, could they come and take all the lights away? Or like how it explained that process to me a little bit.
Sure. So there are protections in place that they will not just come and take all of the lights out of our buildings. I think we can probably speak to that a little bit more as far as what that looks like, or Bob just.
Bob's coming.
I'll let him do it. Okay.
He's gonna be our hero.
So
In a
this
lot
is
of
similar
ways.
to what you may have heard of certificate of participation.
Oh.
So under Tabor, we would need to get a loan approved by voters. This is not truly a loan, it's a lease.
Okay.
But you're paying it back every year, subject to appropriation. So theoretically, they could come back and take it out, but they've, in the contract, say they won't.
Okay.
So we will be coming to the board in the budget every year to appropriate the funds.
For that
For the
year.
lease, yeah.
For
for
to
that
continue the
individual
lease.
lease.
Okay, and the lease has like a open-ended duration? It's-
Well, it actually
or-
ends, we're trying to do the shortest period, where we get the best energy savings and get it paid off as soon as possible, probably over 18 years.
And so then, once it's paid off, then the lease ends and we own the.
We own the equipment and we continue to have the energy savings.
So it's like a rent-to-own program?
That's correct.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Good question. Denise? Done? Thank you. This is nice to know that
Yes.
getting there. Yeah, cool. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
The only item left on the agenda would be the standard issues that are always on all of our board meetings. Okay.
Did this come up?
Yeah, oh, yes, it happened when we approved the agenda. 4.8 was removed. Stu felt like it was not something we needed to, after we had conversation with our attorney.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. And then we also moved Alexandra 6.4 to 6.1 on the next part.
Okay.
Because Randy's here and but we're gonna do Stu's little song and dance first.
Song and dance?
I hope there is a
Yes.
song and a dance.
I'm not sure my accompanist is here, but.
Well, Alexander can pretend.
Okay. You can improvise.
Why not?
All right, very good.
I'll be right back.
All right, you want me to wait for you? Or?
No.
Okay. You might miss something exciting. All right. My meeting last Friday was indeed an interesting one. There were about 40 different bills on the agenda. Rather than talking to you about all 40, I picked a few that we've talked about before or that I thought had particular interest. The main one, if you happen to be following online with what I'm looking at in hard copy, they're working hard and long on the School Finance Act. There's a new proposal which in the first year will guarantee 15% implementation of the new formula and 4 years of averaging. And I won't read to you what's in red because you've either read it or you can read it. But just a quick summary of it is that of the 3 years that were part of the initial discussion, the only one that's guaranteed actually is the first year, and that's the one that says 15% implementation. And when I say guaranteed, please understand I'm putting that in quotation marks because the other part, or many parts of the meeting, contained lots of hand-wringing by various people who are knowledgeable about the state of the state's finances, and in terms of what's guaranteed for next year, maybe. So, but that anyway is a proposal. They're feeling that it is implementable, and for the first year anyway. And so I will keep you posted. They're, as I said, working very hard to come up with enough money to fund K-12 education. The next item, communication devices in school. Let me give you just a quick update on that one because we've talked about that as it relates to cell phones. As it's currently amended, the bill has considerable flexibility. They suspected it was going to have flexibility as it's continuing to roll through the process. It does indeed have flexibility in regard to content. They do expect that districts like ours that don't actually have a hard and fast policy at this point will have some wide parameters to use in terms of determining the policy, and that ample time will be given. So I think I feel good about where we are with that at this particular time. The next one that I included is one I haven't talked to you before about, and that's House Bill 25-1230. And this is a bill that would allow external traffic cameras to be installed on school buses if the Board of Education approves. This is of particular interest to rural districts, but they said there are some urban and suburban districts that are interested as well. Mounting cameras on the outside of the school bus to take a picture of somebody speeding by who does not stop for a school bus. And it's still in the discussion phase, but I thought I would bring that to you for your awareness that it is being discussed. CASB has proposed some amendments to it. I will keep you posted on that. If it passes, then at the point that the legislative session is finished, then we'll have the option to perhaps install those cameras if our folks who are in charge of things like that thinks that it's important. The last one I'll talk about is a new bill that's been introduced, Senate Bill 25-200. It's entitled Dyslexia Screening and Redax Requirements. CASB asked the members of the Legislative Relations Committee to contact superintendents for feedback. And Dr. Schaefer, I think you may be the only one who did, because at my meeting on Friday, Thompson received a pat on the back for having submitted some feedback on this, and Dr. Schaefer is essentially favorable to the content. As I continued to read through it, I found what I thought was a contradiction in the bill language. In one place in the bill language, it says current law requires the local education provider that offers a kindergarten program to administer a school readiness assessment to kindergarten students within the first 60 days of the school year, but it makes the administration of the readiness assessment optional and permits rather than requires a local education provider, and there's some more to that. And later on in the language it says a local education provider must either develop its own process or do something else. So I contacted my contact at CASB and I said, so am I missing something? Is this a contradiction? He said, it appears to be a contradiction in the bill. In the beginning it says it's optional, and later on it says it's required. So I haven't gotten clarification on that, but I will keep you posted. So this has been, the last couple or three meetings have been an interesting experience as the legislators are trying very hard to come up with money to fund all the things that needed to be funded. And K-12 education is saying over and over again, please don't fund the state budget on the back of K-12 education. And so you're probably hearing that in the news as well, and I will certainly keep you posted as we continue to roll out. We don't have a lot of days left in the legislative session. The end.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. We'll move on to our study session discussion items, and we're going to start with Randy first. I'm sorry, Kelly, I thought she got that message.
I totally forgot.
Oh, okay. So Randy, come on up. What we're going to do is we're just going to do an update on the search. He's got the latest information on it, but also we have to determine the days of our interviews, and I gave you a tentative schedule that had May 1, 2, and 3 is what we had when we started, and we're looking to see if that is what we have to do or if there's some flexibility, because one of our members is going to be out of town 2 through 6. 2 through 6. So why don't you just share with us where we are with things, and then we'll talk about that real quick.
Well, that'll be the big thing, is if we have to adjust
The schedule.
that
It's-
schedule a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think the recommendation is maybe move things to the 29th, 30th, and the 1st.
Of May. So it would be 29, April 29, April 30, and May 1 is what we would do.
Yeah.
And so we would need to kind of firm that up tonight. And does anybody have any conflict? I guess I want to start with that first.
I'm not available on the 29th.
You're not available on the 29th. And we also need to look at what our role is on all three of those days. Yeah. On those 3 dates, what our role would be, because there's structure to those 3 days that are not necessarily something that we all have to be there for.
The critical time would be May 1st.
May
that you're
1st
all
is what we have to
for
be
the
there for.
interviews.
What time of day?
We'll start probably at 8, depending on how many candidates you have. It'll be a full day. And I'm anticipating you should be done around 4.
And if somebody has a job that they cannot get out of during that time, is there any virtual possibility at all? Or you wouldn't even have access to that, would you?
I wouldn't. Could it be recorded, and could I watch it later?
The only thing is, it's a confidentiality piece that we would have. So we'll talk through that, Amy. Yeah.
So
Okay.
the original plan on May 1st was to have our formal public forum at one of the high school auditoriums. So, and what we do is we collect questions from the community, and it's not like a town hall where you can hand the mic out and around. I try to ask the questions that have come in from the community to the candidates. After that is over, and that will usually go about an hour.
Okay.
Then we have a designated place for the candidates, and I call it meet and greet. That's where people of the community can go individually meet the candidates, ask questions of the candidates, And then before they leave, or we'll have the mechanism and venue to provide feedback. We collect that feedback from the public forum, meet and greet, and it will be provided to the board at your interview. So we usually try to type up the comments that came in and around what was said and with the candidates. So you have that data point.
And
the next day is
go ahead. I'll ask questions.
Plan for a tour. So because the district is a good sized one, those tours will take most of the day. I'll work with Mike to arrange tour guides. I do ask the principals, which we think is a nice little touch, is to have student ambassadors meet the candidates, show them their school, talk to them, interact with them, and then I'll ask the principals if they want to get a little feedback from the students about their interaction with the candidates. The next day is the interviews. And as I said, there'll be full days. It sounds like we will have some other ad hoc committees being involved with the interviews that they will interview. So for example, the administrators may have their own team. Since they report directly to the superintendent, they'll be able to have their own little interview team. Obviously, teachers and staff. And then we'd also like to have an invite from the community. The problem is that you can't have those ad hoc committees at 20 or 30 people. So we like to limit it to about 8. It's pretty manageable. After they get all done and the board is all done with the interviews, those committees will make a report to the board. We ask them not to rank order the candidates because the board's going to have a lot of more confidential information than anybody else. If they say, oh, we really liked Mike, and you know some things about Mike and you think, oh, Joe's going to be a better fit for our needs, we don't want to put the board in that position. So we really stress the fact. Plus, by law, the only people that can make this selection is the Board of Education. So we have them come and provide that. We have scheduled an executive session after you get all that report in, so the board can then rank order, talk about negotiations with the candidates. May 1st is the critical day because that'll be the 14th day, and then you can immediately go into offering a contract and getting people signed up instead of waiting much more time down the road. So that's the tentative plan. We have a mechanism to invite people to come be on the interview teams, the ad hoc. I'll be working with Mike on that. I'll be working with Mike on setting up the tours for the candidates. We are sitting with 24 applications currently.
Wow.
Okay.
We anticipate a few more by the end of tomorrow, before midnight of
that's
April
right, 'cause
3rd.
it goes till the 3rd.
So I wouldn't be surprised if we're well above 25 and more. So the next thing is, I've gotten your portal ready to go. I want to do a test drive tomorrow, maybe with you, Barb.
Okay.
Okay.
Because Nancy isn't here to sign, so all of the rest of us have signed it and it's ready to go. Okay, that's fine.
All right, so and we can do a test drive on the portal, which will allow the board members to look at all the applications.
Okay.
Okay? And we'll keep updating it. I kind of wanted to wait till Friday after we got the set number of applications.
Right.
So, and not to bother you, say, oh, we got one more. Oh, we got another one.
Okay, so I have a couple questions about what our role would be. So I remember you saying at one point that it's always good to have one or two of the board members maybe sitting in on the public forum just to listen, but also maybe at the meet and greet.
Both.
Okay, and what time will the meet and greet be?
We look for 6 to 7 for the public forum, and then 7 to about 8:30 with the meet and greet.
Oh, these are evening.
Evening.
Okay, 6 to 7
I'm sorry,
and
6 p.m. to 7 p.m.
And
for the public forum, and then Right around 7, we'll break up and
Okay.
go to about 8:30.
Okay,
And which date is that, Randy?
That, if we confirm the date, that would be April 29th.
April 29th.
And I do encourage the board to come
okay,
and observe how the candidates not only answer the questions on the public forum, but also how they interact individually in their meet and greet.
okay. Then on to the day of the tours.
There's, the board is, you're doing your own thing.
Okay.
That'll be district people and students helping
Okay,
on the tours.
okay.
So,
And then clarify in my, I have a vision of what this is. So say we narrow it down to 3 candidates and all 3 of them are here, those 3 days. So then when they're doing their interviews, is it like a rotation? And
the schedule is while you're interviewing one candidate, those other teams will be interviewing
Okay.
the other 2.
okay, that's kind of what I assumed
And
it
if
must
we
be
only
like.
have 3 candidates, one team will get a rest.
Okay,
The
and
board will not, so.
does our executive session have to be that day?
We tend to like to be able to finish up the day with that.
Okay,
You don't have
okay.
to come out of that with a decision, but we
Okay.
think because of the
That would be-
timeline and stuff, it would be good to
That-
talk.
And
On the
that's May
30th?
That's May 1st?
That's May 1st,
May
after
1st?
the interviews. So if you
Yeah.
can picture, we're done at 4:15, the interview teams come and report to you. 4:30 would be the time you would go into
Okay.
executive session.
All right, that helps clear up my wonderings about it.
And
How
then I
about-
will send Laura Lee an example of how we set that agenda up and the legal language that.
Okay. Do any of you have any questions on this piece yet? Or is it not clear at this point?
I have a question.
Okay.
What happens on April 30th? We've talked about
It's tours.
specifically
Tours,
about the
April
29th.
30th.
That's all that will happen on the 30th, are the tours of the
Uh-huh.
buildings? Okay,
It's gonna take some time to get the candidates
sure.
throughout the district.
I just didn't
and
know if there was
visit
anything
schools.
else that was also
We,
part of
we
that.
like a pretty extensive
Okay.
tour,
Uh-huh.
so they know. So one may start in Berthoud with their tour guide, and somebody may start up north, and.
So they
Okay.
don't tour together, the candidates do?
We like to have separate tours.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. All right, so now we need to go to the dates to make sure.
So I have a question.
Uh-huh.
At
Sorry,
the-
Alexandra.
At the public forum, that part, so all 2 or 3 or however many candidates, all of them are together at that point and being asked
What's happening
like
from 7 to 8?
questions by, like how does the game plan?
Probably a bad analogy, but think Jeopardy.
Okay.
A panel.
Okay, and I'll be Alex, so I like to mix up the questions, and I'll have them sorted into different categories like student achievement, maybe communications, leadership, and so forth.
Okay.
But I anticipate we're gonna get a lot more questions than can be asked in that time frame.
Right.
So I will encourage the community to go to the meet and greet and individually ask candidates.
Mhm.
So then the meet and greet, each of the candidates will be in their own room
Yeah,
By-
in some special location by them, yes.
by themselves.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and then the community can rotate to those rooms.
Okay, okay.
How do you get the feedback from the students?
The ambassadors,
Yeah.
we will, you can either A, have a card, or have the principal fill out the card and have them ask the students about their interaction with the
Okay.
candidates.
And so
It's
the-
very valuable
the-
information,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
we
but like the
give that to-
principal would record the
It could,
information?
well, if it's little guys, you know,
Mhm,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the older kids could probably do their own, so
Mhm.
we just
Okay.
rely on the school administration.
Okay.
This
Thank you.
last Wednesday, Randy met with the 3 different student advisor
Oh,
groups.
good, okay.
So he had that time in the morning I think it was last Wednesday.
Mhm. You
Yeah.
should be getting that report as
Yeah.
addendum to the big survey that was sent out.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
When will you start screening the candidates?
Already have.
You already
Stu.
have?
Yeah.
Okay,
We have already started that process.
all right.
Oh,
So, I mean, needless to say, there's some that we have not think meet the criteria that the
Yeah.
board established.
And just to clarify, this was not an internal only search?
Oh, no.
I just need that to be said.
Internal only?
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
no.
we advertised outside of the school
Oh, yeah,
district,
you have
correct? Yeah,
applications
thank you.
from Oregon, from New York.
Thank you for.
Minnesota.
Thank you for putting that out on the public to hear that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
No, you have applications, you have some Colorado.
Perfect,
You
thank
have-
you.
I mean, they're all over, so.
What's the largest number of applicants that you think we might interview? Do you have a maximum number?
I look at your day, we're hoping that we can really center in on, and this is totally the board's decision, but 3 or 4 would be a good place.
So 4 might be the max.
But if you
number.
have 5, we'll make that work.
Okay.
Whatever
All
the
right.
board does. Just makes it for a longer day.
Yeah, I get that.
So if you say you're already screening them, so through this portal, we'll be able to see everybody, even the ones that you think are not a
Yep.
good fit.
Yeah, we have not put anything in the portal to do any biases with the
Okay.
board. so.
And then but then you'll give us like your.
On the 16th, we
Okay.
will present you with what we think your top tier candidates are.
Okay.
And we will have them, they will have been invited to do a digital interview.
Okay.
And that will be available. We hope to have that out before the 16th for the board.
Okay.
Still confidential information.
Yes.
So, but you'll be able to look at their answers.
Okay.
We'll come up with 3 suggested questions, but I'll let Barb know what those are. We try to focus those questions as well as yours towards the qualifications that you gave us.
Okay. I want to let the board know also on the 16th, we'll have a brief executive session, I think, prior to our meeting because of negotiations. Okay, but we are, during our actual meeting during that time, we're gonna take a 2-hour executive session just during our regular board meeting and leave, we're at Berthoud, but we will go to some secure room at Berthoud, and that's where we'll have our executive session with Randy.
And that's when we'll decide on the ones that we want to
Right.
actually come.
That would be the day you would decide who you'd like to invite in.
Okay.
And
So-
Dr. Cooper will be with me too.
So our agenda that night will be very focused on just basically probably what we've talked about tonight. We won't have a full meeting and probably no board reports.
Or public comment? Or do you know yet?
No, probably not public comment either, because we won't have time.
Okay.
That'd be my guess, wouldn't you think that?
Just
I will wait and see.
We'll see,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah. But we won't do any board reports that night.
yeah, good.
So that's a lot of information.
Yes.
We'll keep, step by step, keep pushing things out so you're aware. So to answer the question, it'd be nice to have as many board members there at the public forum, again, for observation.
Mhm.
For those who cannot, you can rely on other board members and say, you know, what did you think and how did that go? I also encourage the board to go to the breakout rooms for the meet and greet.
Okay,
And to observe what questions might be asked and how they handle asking those or answering those questions.
okay.
Do we have a location of that yet?
For some reason, in my mind, I'm thinking Thompson Valley, but high school.
Do you know?
We
No,
don't.
we don't have a
haven't
place
discussed
yet.
it yet.
Yeah.
So, but it'll be coming up fast, so.
Mhm.
Could I, as soon as all of this is, could we get like a schedule?
Yeah, definitely.
And like must and then optional? and
Yeah, we'll let you know. Yeah,
Helpful.
yeah. Is the first doable for most of us? Okay, and we'll,
I'm texting Nancy.
okay,
She hasn't responded.
all right, okay. So we'll tentatively plan on the 29, 30, and 1st. Is that the day you can't or can?
I mean, I'll have to see if I can get off work.
Okay. I don't know what else for us to do. Had you already made arrangements for the prior week, the first announcement that was sent out?
Well, the 3rd is a Saturday.
Oh, That's right.
So
That made it easier.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's right.
Yeah, that changes everything.
That changes it for everybody.
I never really processed that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I was curious about why that was, but
Now
it
you can
makes
see
it, now
why.
I understand.
Yeah, yeah.
It's good for us.
We always tried to do interviews on a Saturday, just because of the ad hoc committees that are involved, as well as the board that are working.
Okay.
But we could move it up to the 24th, 25th, and 26th, but I think you have conflicts.
Yeah, we have
so-
some conflicts, yeah.
But you could not make a decision or offer a
Contract.
until May 1st,
It has to be 2 weeks between
14 days
from
from the day you
closing.
declare finalists, which is on
Okay.
the 16th.
On the 16th, I see. Okay. All right. Thank you, Randy. I'll be in touch with you
Don't
tomorrow.
hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. So, and like I said, Barb,
I'll try that
we're
portal
gonna do
tomorrow.
a test run on the portal
Great.
with all the applications in there.
Okay.
Plus the fact that we had 3 come in late after I
Okay.
got it all ready to go.
Of course.
So I'd just soon wait to try to launch it on Friday. That way
Sure.
we'll have the complete list
Okay.
of who's applied.
Sounds good. All right.
Good.
Thank you.
And it has been a national search, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. And
Yeah.
you have some good quality people in the pool. So, as I always say, it only takes one, like with Mark.
Yeah, that's right.
And,
That's right.
And the hard part will probably be screening down to a manageable finalist.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
I'm
Thank you,
excited
Randy.
for your pool, so, yeah. Great.
Thank you.
And then I'm gonna drive home carefully.
Yeah,
'cause
please do.
last time-
I'm glad you're okay.
Last time I left you, I was hanging upside down in my truck.
Yeah, yeah.
Do that.
No.
Yeah.
I s-
Just,
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I move gingerly, I still dealing with
Of
some.
course.
yeah, I bet you are.
So,
Good to see you.
Yes. Glad you're up and about.
Thank you. for
All right,
your-
we'll talk soon.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. All right. I'm gonna move us on to Kelly. 6.2, because we have to renumber these. So we're gonna do an AI task force meeting, or update. Yay, it'll be fun.
Dr. Schaefer, Madam President, esteemed board members, Kelly Sane, Chief Technology Officer. So I have the pleasure of talking about AI and the update with our task force. So, first thing is, our task force has been really focusing on 3 different pieces. We've been talking a little bit about a policy and or guidance. The biggest piece that we hear from everybody is guidance versus policy. AI changes by the minute, and so as soon as you would have a policy in place, it would change. So we're really working on that. Our responsible use policy that we already have in place is more generic and allows for things like academic integrity and quoting sources and giving credit. Then we're talking about an AI pilot, and we have 4 different pieces that we've looked at so far with our task committee, and then professional development. So we are going to host our very first ed tech conference called Technanigans.
I wondered who those people were, or why they were hanging out with us.
Technanigans. Celebrate the name on June 3rd, and we're bringing in expert Matt Miller to be able to talk to us, and we've got some of the people behind us who are actually presenting at Technanigans, so we're going to hear from each other. So I think it's the best part for me to talk about something like this is to bring the members who have been along this journey with us, and so we will be doing a panel, but I'm just going to first start a little bit with where our work is right now. So here's our working mission statement, and it's related to Strive 2025 with a critical thinker that we evaluate and analyze data, which is of course, AI literacy is very important for critical thinking, and a communicator by using tech skills and digital tools to explore and exchange ideas. So this is our continuous working mission statement, where we understand that AI is the future where we have to have it, but human-centered AI is the most important part for us as we strive and look at what it would be to use AI in today's day and age. So we've generated some guiding principles. So these are the 4 pieces that we've really talked about. They align to the portrait of a graduate. So whatever we're looking at within AI and TSD, we want it to have a human-centered approach. That's the most important part. All of our teachers and our administrators make connections with students, which is something that AI cannot do.
No.
And that's essential to relationships and any kind of success we have. So student and staff agency, being able to use these tools of their future. Ethical and responsible use. You know, that is something that we are definitely worried about, is becoming over-reliant on AI, yet at the same time understanding that we can't put it back in the box. So what is that ethical and responsible use? And then safety and security third. So the most important, oh, did you hear that? They all said they love the name.
We do love the name. We said that we love that everyone here talking about this
Yes.
are all women.
Yeah.
I
Say
totally
that
missed
again.
that.
Yeah.
Yes, that is wonderful.
Yes.
All right, so now you just made my heart sing. So, the most important work that all of the members in our community need to do is to really understand and use AI. So develop that curiosity. What is the literacy around using AI tools, and then understanding of what AI really means, because it's going to transform education and it transforms the way that we work daily. So that's the most important piece, is for us to really get into that art of the possible. So we've had some experiences. These are really kind of the 4 biggest tools that everyone talks about. ChatGPT, of course, you've heard about that. Claude, Gemini is Google's version, and Perplexity. And then we did some events where we've talked with EC12 and other experts at our leveled meetings with principals, and with DLC, which is our digital learning cohort, and with librarians. And so we've had opportunities to look at each one of these tools, and when you give it the same prompt, what does it produce?
Nice.
And how different? Because I would use Claude when I want a more academic tone. I would use ChatGPT as it gives me a little bit better of analysis. I would use Gemini when it gives me some bulleted lists. Perplexity is still one of my favorite. And it really allows you to search more of the internet and do some different pieces. So each tool is different in how, and so it's important that you play with these to understand the different results you get from each different large language model. So we did ask everyone to participate in bingo, so we're doing blackout bingo, and we want everyone to play and understand what AI is. And so as a result, when people turn in their bingo card with us, we will give them a prize. So far, no one's turned in bingo cards. So
Elementary school principals get it tomorrow.
okay. I thought that the competitiveness of this would allow us to turn in some bingo cards, but everyone's busy. It's testing season right now. So we did have some vendor presentations, and these are kind of the biggest playmakers, I guess, in AI right now for education. You notice that ChatGPT isn't on here because they will not sign a DPA, and it's an open AI source, meaning that it would feed the large language model, which goes against student data privacy law. So these are the 4 that we've kind of looked at. Some of these are way out of our price range. AI is expensive, very, very expensive. Conmingo right now is $15 a student a month.
Oh, it is a month? I looked at that little video, but I didn't realize it was talking
It's very
monthly.
expensive.
Yeah.
So these are the different pieces that we're looking at, and I have been on a tour with a bunch of different with Google and with School AI and Skillstruck and Magic Tool, and telling them that you're going to create a new digital divide by the cost right now, and that's not fair to our students. And so we've had lots of really great conversations. Unfortunately, the server farm that's required for AI is expensive. So they're taking, they need to also recoup the additional servers that they have to do to be able to make AI work. So you heard a little bit from me, but really the biggest piece is the people sitting behind me. They are the experts. So what's common, I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and hopefully they'll join me. What's the most important piece is that they are all on our AI task force. They are all learners. They are all leaders and educators. They all went to FATC, and now they're all women. So come on up, y'all. So what my hope was, I'm not splitting you up into a station rotation model, but I am asking. We have a panel of some different questions, and our hope was just to learn from them. And we do not have time for every single person. And I probably didn't start my timer. We don't have time for every single person to answer every question, but let's go on to our first question. So, what is your hope for how AI will impact students in learning? Before you speak, please say what your name is, what your role is, and where you support learning in TSD. So let's start with Anne.
I guess I'm going first. My name's Ann Dewey. I'm the manager of EdTech and Digital Media Services. So I work with a wonderful team who helps teachers implement technology in their classrooms more effectively. One of them's down there. She's also the head technanigan gal, just so my answer to this question is that I think that this is the most amazing opportunity we've had for teachers to demonstrate their growth mindset. This is a learning curve for every single person in the whole world, and so I think that a growth mindset is so important for everyone. And 46 years old, I still, surprisingly have some things to learn. So this has been an amazing journey for me as well, because I had used AI before this, but it hadn't impacted my life as significantly as it does now as a person who needs to help others learn the ins and outs of AI and perhaps the danger points as well. So I think that growth mindset is the most significant thing to me.
I'm Michaela Pennick. I'm a 3rd grade teacher at Riverview. So I am a lonesome teacher up here. So I've had the joy of experimenting with AI, and I think I'm on a unique perspective because I'm hitting that bubble of early elementary and upper where we're not having kids using AI on their own yet necessarily, but I've been able to kind of implement some of the cool tools that they have to offer, which you saw on some of the bingo boards, like the AI image creator, we've touched all of those things. But it's a really cool tool to kind of help students, even the playing field a little bit, there are so many tools of how kids have been able to interact with it. And I think for me, the biggest thing is to continue on that growth mindset, but also that digital literacy. We're gonna have to bring back in digital literacy, and it's kind of been something that's been pushed to the side for a couple of years, and just teaching kids how to use it responsibly. And I'm a student myself. I'm getting my master's, and so it's been cool to have that perspective as a student as well of how to use it as a tool and not just let it do my homework for me is going to be a big thing. But it is such a cool tool of all the things that it can offer for both students and staff.
I'm Marky Ramirez. I'm the principal at Mountain View High School. And the reflection that I've really done, and I've shared this with our task force as well as the secondary principals as well, is that we are on another cusp of how technology is going to revolutionize education. And I date myself a little bit when I say this, but I think about how my teachers must have felt when the internet first came out and how scary that was, and how it was going to change the way that we did research, and there was going to be no more hard catalog. And I remember writing research papers where you had your note cards with the the source on the back, and it just transformed the way that we used to do things. And it's such a tool that we use now that I don't think as an educator we would ever want to go back to the old system. And so looking at where we're at with AI, my hope would be that we embrace it, as scary as it might be right now, in a way that we do the internet now, and knowing that this is going to transform education. But I feel like if we were to fast forward 20 years from now, we probably would hopefully come to a part where we wouldn't want to go back to the way that we did things before we had this unique tool. And that's really, as I think as a building leader, thinking about how we launch this work is really understanding that it is a tool that we can use. It's not a replacement for anything, but it is a tool, and it will be our duty to ensure that our students and staff know how to use the tool properly.
Sorry. So I'm Jamie Lockwood, the principal at Ponderosa Elementary. Thank you for having us tonight. I was thinking the same thing along the same lines. AI is here for our future careers, not just education, right? So we have to start thinking and planning, even at the elementary school level, how we're going to build those skills for our future students, right? And to enhance their thinking, not replace their thinking, right? And with everything that we've been doing together and moving forward with the guardrails and everything, teachers are already dabbling in it, right? And so we want to get all of those common thinking going right now to be able to set that work forward for the students.
And I'm Sheena Kelly. I'm the Digital Media Literacies Coordinator, so I support all of the library assistants, the teacher librarians, and the tech facilitators in the district. And AI literacy is, in my opinion, just another branch off of the librarian information literacy tree. And so it feels all very natural to me that we should be embracing how we're talking to students about this as a subset of digital citizenship and digital literacy and media literacy. It's just one new, very different, component of conversations that we're hopefully already having with our students as they grow. So I want my hope, I guess, is that this will revolutionize how and what students are capable of achieving, because it will so vastly increase what's possible for them in their futures, things that we can't guess at this point. But in that we as the educators are helping to prepare them for that unknowable future. And part of that, I'll wrap up since I'm at the end of this train, is to say that you should all register for Technania and please attend so that you can be part of that conversation about what the future looks like for our students.
Good. That's www.tsd.org/shenanigans.
It does have Technanigans on it.
Yes. I'll put it in my next PLE report so you have it. No, we really do want to bring in the community. We're bringing in an expert, Matt Miller, who is a teacher practitioner and also an expert in educational technology. He's one of the leading experts in AI in education. We had the pleasure of hearing him a couple of times at FETC. So it'll be a cool opportunity to learn from and get his book. So what, now everyone doesn't have to answer, so just let me know if this is of interest to talking. You know about the tools that we're considering, so Kunmingo, School AI, Magic School, Skillstruck. What data, security, privacy, and our learning perspectives do we think we need to consider or highlight? Go ahead. Okay. As Kelly kind of alluded to, one of the great things about these 4 front runners is that they're built as educational tools. And so with that, they come with some guardrails already as part of the software. So getting a data privacy addendum and making sure that we're not feeding into a large language model is kind of built into the system, which is very important when we're thinking about protecting our students' personally identifiable information. But a part of this, like the second part of this question, is thinking about the learning perspectives. And so, yes, exceedingly important that we are talking about AI literacy with students, but before we get there, how do we make sure that staff are prepared to talk about AI literacy? Are they AI literate in the first place? So it's not just that these tools have kind of built-in modules for interfacing with students, which many of them do, but what does it look like on the staff perspective, and how are we adequately preparing them to teach to this and to use it effectively and build their own skills first?
Along those same lines, I think like when I first thought of ChatGPT, it's like you ask it a question, it tells you the answer. Okay, that's one way to get information, but then what are we going to have the students do with it? But I think as we got to see different vendors and different presentations, I learned that there was more about guardrails. So when a student might say, what is the answer to this? The system actually goes, I can't answer that for you. But here's a prompting question that you might want to think about. And so it ends up having a conversation with students, which is much what I would expect teachers to be doing with them. They just don't have enough time to get around to, every single student to have an in-depth dialogue with them about potentially picking like a science fair project. The system can ask the student different types of questions to prompt their thinking, where I just thought, oh, well, you ask it a question, it gives you an answer. And now we've learned more that there's those guardrails in place, and that's what a lot of these different systems do, and what teachers will have an element of control over is how much information are we providing the students, where is that information coming from, but then also limiting how much the students can glean from that versus what they need to produce on their own.
So you can set up those guardrails as a teacher, and then you also have a dashboard. So you can see every single question that the student has asked the LMM, so you can see where their thinking was. And so that information allows you to understand if they're becoming too self-reliant or not. So yes, that's what the tool can do, but as I think Sheena eloquently said, is we also have to understand as a teacher where are the parameters. You know, the guardrails can be done within a tool. You can always use technology to control behaviors, but it can't always be the only thing. So having conversations that say, yes, I'm gonna use this chatbot to brainstorm, but then that's all I get to use it for this activity. Those kinds of things are the conversations that we want to start having, and that parameter with teachers to be able to set that literacy, and also with what tool could we use.
And I think for teachers to start hearing that more is the biggest thing, because a lot of them still only think that it's a chat bot that you put an answer in, you get an answer out, and there is no, but there's educational tools to it. And so I think that's where we're really starting to lean, and where we've gone out into our buildings and tried to start presenting it as there's way more to AI and way more to AI in education than a lot of people realize.
I think another important component, sorry, just to piggyback real quick, is that a lot of these tools, as they're built for education, offer insights into the student, how they're interacting. So sure, you get to read all of what they're saying, but it offers the student seems disengaged, or the student is using inappropriate language, and using that tech tool actually facilitates and fosters more one-on-one conversations between the teacher and the student.
I used one of those chatbots and it gave me this list, and I could go into each student, but then it gave me a little emoji, and it was this student had this kind of conversation, and it matched the face of the emoji, but then it also gave me a list of hey, these 3 students asked these questions, I don't think they understand it, you might want to talk with them more about this specific concept. So then it gave me insight too, again, that I can go back into those students, and have a one-on-one conversation with it without me having to bounce around the room all the time. I got it right at the end of this session. I did it. It was really cool.
All right, so what are your concerns about implementation and using AI in education? So we've talked about hopes. What are your concerns?
Perceptions. That people will have an understanding of one AI tool and think that that is the blanket understanding that applies to all. We've talked a lot about the tools that are specific for schools tonight, and that would be the type of tool that we would want in our classrooms, not just, hey, ChatGPT is real cool, go try a thing, and with really specific guidelines about what the student should be doing with that particular tool, and using it in the right manner as you would any tool. There's a time and a place for everything, and there's also a time and a place to leave those things to the side and use your own thinking. So I would say that that's something that I hear teachers say frequently, is they're concerned about how their own perception might be coloring what their the possibilities might be, and I think that's a valid concern.
I think my biggest concern is getting teachers on board and having them understand and get the training and get the knowledge, because they have to be on board before we can get kids on board in the correct way. And so I think Technanigans is a great start to it. I'm really hoping to share some of those cool things with teachers there. I also, hope that we are going to pilot an opportunity for teachers to start testing their toes into it, because that's going to be a good opportunity for them to start seeing it on their end, because they've got to get on board first. And so I think we're making the right steps, but then again, it just is going to take some time to filter out. But that's my biggest concern, is getting teachers on board.
To piggyback on that too, I think there's tools for teachers.
Yes.
And as we focus on how the students are going to be using this, as an adult, I use this in my job on a weekly basis, if not a daily basis.
Yes.
And when I'm coaching some of our teachers that are I don't know how to explain this another way, I have a tool for you. And I think back to my first year teaching, if this tool was available, I would have used it all the time to to increase my toolbox as an educator around how can you explain this in a different way. There are SAT questions and keys that are already loaded into some of these systems, so my English and math team didn't have to go anywhere else. They could just ask for, I need 10 sample SAT questions over this content area, go. And it had them ready to use, and so much of it, there's so many time-saving things for teachers that I think they're gonna be able to use their time in different ways, which is a constant piece of feedback that I hear all the time. There's just never time to do everything, and I think this will, once teachers learn to use the tools that are available for them, that it can be a really time-saving resource that they have.
I think I would add on to the the knowledge from the teachers that how we need to build their capacity around it, right? Because for instance, it is going to make their job much easier. I've worked in Magic School with some of my teachers, and it'll give you feedback on your student writing. So you put the prompts in that you want it to provide to the students immediately on their writing. So their writing is submitted, it gives them the prompts back to whatever you had put in there. But then what's really important is that the teacher is connecting with them on that after that, right? So in a way, it's gonna take some work off their plate, but it's actually just allowing them more time to reflect on the work with the students too, so.
I think it also has to do, I'm going next.
I have so much to say.
I know, that's why I'm gonna jump in before, and you can have the floor. So I think learning a new skill is always hard, and this is certainly something that has nuances, and different tools have different things that they do well, and learning that is part of the skill. And so when you're learning something new, then something else has to give, like your capacity for other things has to be lower. So I think that's gonna be difficult for teachers at first to find that balance for themselves about learning something new and then feeling like they are confident with that skill before they can move to their next level. Okay.
I think one of my concerns is that we're just going so at a pace that isn't keeping up.
Correct.
And there are inherent flaws in artificial intelligence. But by not embracing it, as Kelly said, there's no putting it back in the box. Students are already using it. By not embracing it at this point and educating our community on how to properly and effectively use it, we're kind of doing our community a disservice. So that's my biggest concern is we know there are problems with it, but by not acknowledging that and teaching around that, we can't kind of work with that reality. Yes, there's some bias and there are some hallucinations, but how do we mitigate that? How do we teach our students to use it in productive ways, because they are using it?
All right. What is, we've investigated and used a lot of resources, and we looked at what other surrounding districts. Is there any one resource that you really loved that you wanted to share and talk about?
I've loved Magic School AI and School AI have been my top two. Magic School has been really great as a teacher. Like Ricky had touched on, I can put in a rubric and it can create a rubric for me. I use it a lot for example or writing pieces. So if I want to show kids an example, I can have it spit out an example for me. I have it spit out math problems, so I'm not having to sit in the moment and come up with my 10 math problems that I'm using for kids. And so it's been a really cool way. We had it over the summer, my teammate and I kind of were redesigning social studies units in a way, and we couldn't find a specific article that talked about Colorado and the culture and the food and the this and the that, and we asked AI to do it, and it spit us out a third grade appropriate article for it, and so it's been really cool to have kind of like it's my new go-to of like, I wonder if AI could do that for me instead of just searching Google or going to whatever resources. Just like, it really has taken that load off. And like I said, I've started to dabble with students with it, and the students have had opportunities to interact with these chatbots, and the engagement just goes up in a ton because it's new, but then also it's like we're leaning into their world. And it's been an incredible way for them to start to see those pieces and start to see the flaws in AI, and then to see that they still have to participate and ask those questions and comments and things like that. And so, I've used it on both sides, and it's been really cool. And so with this task force and all the things, I don't think I would have started dabbling with the students. I used it as a teacher, but now I'm starting to see how I can incorporate it with my students, and that's been really cool, especially on that 3rd grade, like, what do you do with technology? What do you not do with technology with that age? So
I would second the Magic School. First, it's developed by educators, and it's here in Denver, correct, Kelly? By people here in Denver too. Not that that makes a difference, but hey. And I've dabbled in it also from the teacher side, but they're also starting to develop the administrator side of things too.
Cool.
And so when you can click kind of through the different tabs and everything, and you get all your teacher resources, rubrics, examples, vocabulary, just on and on. But then it has an administrator side. So it has one prompt that is responding to an email. And so it'll help you think through making sure that I'm addressing all the points in this email. It has a professional development maker in it also. So put in what you want, it'll spit stuff back to you. What else am I missing, Mark?
There was a translator feature, so you can take some of your things and have it translate, and the languages are huge. I've done it a lot, even when I had some critical conversations with some students, and it was kind of a tricky thing, and I didn't want to, step in the muck a little bit. So I was like, hey, let's ask, some of the tools, the chatbot in Magic School, and it was like, here's some language to use with this age group where, maybe this is a different piece of language you can use. So I think even turning some of our critical conversations into student-friendly language, there's some tools that we can use as well.
There are many tools and they have different purposes, but one of my favorites has been Notebook LM, where you are kind of creating your own large language model. So I have started to use that in the department this school year. I noticed a lack of sufficient resources for onboarding new staff. And so I have built a notebook where I have imported and added sources for the board policies for collection development, resources for who to contact in the department if you need help with your 3D printer or for purchasing a book, and every minute detail of how to be a library assistant, a tech facilitator, or a teacher librarian. And I share this with staff. They can go to the notebook, ask it a question, and it will give them an answer based on only the sources that I have vetted. So I'm basically creating my own custom chatbot to serve as their helper with any departmental questions.
That's what I used as a student actually the most, because then it also creates a podcast and it creates a study guide and it creates like a summary of all the things, and so it's like I can ask it questions based on what I'm doing that's pulling from the resources that I want it to, and it's not just the ones, and helps you sort out the information and then also cite the information from where you're getting it from.
So Notebook LM is Google product.
Yeah.
So it's part of our Google domain.
Okay.
All right, so we have one last question.
I want to say something.
Sorry.
This one. Sorry. I'm going to go a different direction with this. I've been reading The AI-Driven Leader. Oh, it's great. And I should be getting a kickback for it because I'm telling anybody who will listen about it. And Jeff Woods is the author, and I read about it in a blog by George Couros. And so I can't say enough good things about that book. It's business related mostly, but there are so many things that we can learn from business, and so I think that as somebody who's responsible for helping not only teachers but people of all levels, administrators, and just being examples for the others in the district who might be embracing AI, like these are all the ways that we should be thinking about it in that book. So you should read it.
It's available in our Sora digital catalog.
It sure is.
All of you have access to Sora, so if you want to do that, you can check it out and listen to it yourself. Or is it an audiobook?
It is.
An audiobook, okay.
Can you send us a reminder of how to
Of where
use
Sora
that?
is, I will
Yeah.
add that to my
Since the
my
library
notes.
got rid of what I used.
Yes, I will
need a new one.
definitely do that.
Thank you.
So you had the pleasure of attending FATC, and you've been working in our AI task force. How has it evolved? When you first started to where you are now, how has your thinking evolved?
I'll give examples of that already.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say,
I mean,
we touched on it.
in case that's what you were thinking, I just wanted to say it.
And part of it, especially when you get us all together like this, like we just feed off of each other because we all went to this conference, we had this common experience, and now we keep each other excited about, oh my gosh, tell me what you did with your students and how could I use that at the high school, or sharing ideas from the principal's lens. It's been really exciting just to have this group and being able to share that with the AI task force, and now we keep meeting with different groups throughout the district and kind of sharing that knowledge. So finding other people that are also excited about it just kind of generates excitement.
And it was at just the right level for us. It was exactly the right place for us to have that really important experience. And I think that Technanigans would not be what it's going to be, the magical experience that you'll have there. And we came up with so many ideas and examples and tools, and we came away with all we could have ever asked for and more.
All right, so the next slide is about Technanigans. So
Right.
if you want to register, you can register.
There's the
And there's the link and everything else. So please join us. We're hoping to even have some students so that we can hear from them on, I'm going to do a panel with students that says, hey, here's a scenario. Is it cheating or not cheating with AI? And have them kind of let me see, what they think about that as we go forward. So again, any questions that you have for the expertise that's in the room, I'd love to hear from all of you.
Where did we leave off? I think Stu, is it your turn to start, Amy? Do you have any?
Sure. First of all, this is exciting.
Yeah, it is.
I love that just hearing this has made it less scary. I think every time you talk about AI, I get a little less scared of it. Because I didn't have Atari growing up. I didn't have all of these things. Which brings me to the grown-up side, so the caregiver side of things. Is there a plan to roll it out to educate the grown-ups at home and so you're just not gonna let AI take over, all of that. So is there education or?
Yes, we definitely need to get first for us as teachers and leaders to understand our literacy, and then as we work through guardrails and guidance, then we would love to be able to go on and have some events for parents and have them come and talk to us, and have them talk with experts in the room, and also talk about that guidance. And then we've had a little bit of opportunity to understand the impact, so we might be at a different place right now. We're kind of through the knot hole and we see the power. There's still people who are like, absolutely not, shut it down.
Sure.
We can't have it. We don't want it to become over reliant. And we have to put those pieces into the room and have opportunities for people to talk.
Right. And then I guess to piggyback on that, do you foresee that with a lot of the consents that we sign as grown-ups for kids to use technology, will those consents have to change because of AI? Kids using, if it's a school-based, an educational base, but I don't know, are there?
I need to ask a clarifying question, as in consent for someone to use AI or not use AI as a parent?
Yeah, well, for my child to use AI at school, but it's sort of like, I remember when the internet and Google and the Chromebooks and oh my gosh, how is that gonna, and now it's just everyday type of thing, but when it first started, we were all nervous about it, we signed all kinds of things, so.
I think it's really important for us to show the guardrails that we have in place that will help with that. Just also to remember, AI has been around for a long time, so every time you type something into your computer, it gives you a spell check. So I can't take AI out of spell check. I can't take AI out of our spam filters. So it's available everywhere. So yes, there are some new tools. That's a different ballgame that we're talking about, are the LLMs. But AI in itself has been around for a very long time. And so we do need to talk about that, and it has been embedded and we've been using it for a while. So what are the parameters that we're putting in place, what are the guardrails, and then I think the most important piece is really to say to a teacher and a principal that you get to determine, you know, this is not an AI approved learning activity. This is an AI approved learning activity. To have that conversation about when you use it and when you don't use it, so we don't become over reliant on it and use it for everything.
Can I just add on to what Kelly just said too, is when I was at the conference, I visited with some other schools who are ahead of us and having Red put in. And they actually had a system, I'm just gonna simplify it, red, yellow, green light, right?
Okay.
So every teacher had to identify in their lesson plans what the usage of AI could be for that lesson, right? So red could be no AI at all, it's all you. Yellow is approved, but you have to ask me first, and green is full on, use it. And so I think that's where we're at the point right now, is we're establishing that, but there's lots of good examples of how it's being used out there throughout the world too, so.
Okay. We also look to Common Sense Media pretty frequently for guidance, both from the educator side and then helping parents understand how they can help their kids understand what it is, well, understand for themselves too. So that's a really good resource that we point people to frequently.
Perfect. Alexandra?
So I have one comment and one question. The comment is I really appreciated what you said about like talking about like the card catalogs and doing research and stuff like that, because that was how, maybe except for Michaela, the rest of us, that was how we all did it, right? And that was like, you just did it, and it was, and then now you like look back on that, it's like, oh my god,
Right.
like how did we function? And we did, but it's just, you know, and so I haven't thought about AI in like quite that perspective before, and so like that I definitely appreciate that and think about that, and sort of like to Amy said, I'm like, oh, you know, this was okay, we adapted, we now, you know, have learned a different way to do things, so we can do it with that too, so I appreciate that. My question is more about, you talked about, Kelly, about like the potentially large cost of implementing these things. How are you all using these now? Like, do you pay for your own subscriptions, or are you using free models, or how is that working?
More like freemium, so there's the free version, and then if you pay, you get additional access to different modules or components.
A lot of the systems we've looked at have had free teacher tools.
Yeah.
So it's a good place to start as we educate the staff around what this could kind of look like and get their comfort level in a good place. And then I think that's why we're looking at different vendors, and Kelly's doing a lot of research in that area to determine, okay, if we were to go full-scale student size with this, what would we really be looking at?
We also have some tools that are included with our Google for Education subscription, but they're only for people who are 18 and above. Like Notebook LM is a piece of that. And so that's how we're utilizing that. Gemini is also the same, in the same vein. There's a beefed up version of Gemini that you can purchase for that licensing as well, but we just have the plain Jane bargain basement Google Gemini for grown-ups.
Because a lot of these are education based, a lot of these companies, especially as a lot of them are getting started, have been work really well with teachers and are willing to work with us and give us the accounts and the access and all of those things from the teacher side of things. So yeah, a lot of them, I like the word freemium. That's a good one. I'm gonna keep that one in my pocket. You know, there's extra tools and things, but I think also part of that comes in with the safety and security piece that we would buy into one as well, would be the reason that we would purchase one, is for that piece of things. And so as a teacher we can use it, but as a student it gets a little...
We have to follow the Colorado data privacy law.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which we have to adhere to, so that's the additional challenge, and we have instructed over and over for a long time, do not put PII in there, do not put any you know, trade secrets, you know, different things like that within the free tools, so that we are not violating current law.
Denise?
Yeah, so what do we look at, like, per pupil what we spend and how it looks relative to other districts around us? What would we really need to spend?
For AI or just technology?
Technology plus then, I mean, if you can subdivide it in with AI, that'd be interesting.
yes, we do like to look at that and compare. You know, we have looked at all of our surrounding districts about which ones they have gone down, and most of the ones that we see out, you know, that we looked at earlier in this presentation are really the only ones that are willing to sign a DPA and get into a contract with education. So, you know, we had hoped that with the mill or bond passing that we would have money in which to be able to do this. And, you know, the reality is we don't. So now we have to think about a pilot and then think about what are the other things that we could do instead. Which is why I've been going on very, meeting, you know, we had the opportunity to go to San Jose, California, and meet with the Google mothership and talk to them about, from education, and say, you know, this is not, we can't do this at, you know, $13 as a kid. You need to think about the equity for digital access. So we may have to make some hard decisions and think about what other current software that we have that we don't renew so that we could do AI, or are there other levers that we can play with, as well as, like, do we go to a 6-year refresh for devices? Those kinds of things to live within our budget means, and think about that versus AI. Those are gonna be some fun conversations over the next year.
Don? Oh, I'm sorry. No.
So one thing I was thinking of is to give our staff like some very tangible, like, these are 3 things you can do that are gonna give you time back, right? Because we know that they're too busy to even try it to know. And so, like, if we can give them something that is universal like that, that would be really helpful. And then I really wanted to call out special education, because I think when you did the demo that came up, this came up in some other things, the individualization, you had an example of like why some of this is more engaging. That is really because of that. It's meeting kids where they are and able to address the needs that we struggle sometimes to do in the classroom for all the different kids. And so I really think, like, highlighting that is some of the stuff that sticks with me in every conversation. I keep going, yep, there it is again, there it is again. And so I just wanted to, like, bring that back here. And then the other thing, and I do not remember which one of you said it, because I think a lot of, like, you each said a little bit of it, but an aha I had just sitting here was that the reality is there are kids have access to it outside of school at the very least. And so the risk that we're running by not doing this is that our kids are getting ahead of us, which of course as adults we struggle with anyway. But this is one of those places where the growth is like so much more exponential. And then that gets kind of back wrapped around to what Amy said, which was, as I was hearing this, I'm way less concerned about the kids than I am about the adults and the mindset and the support and how we know how to use it well so that we can do that. Not just as educators, but at home, right? Because when you've been told it's terrible or it'll never work, that bites us as much as somebody who maybe doesn't know how to do any of this. So I just, like, there was a lot of things that you said that kind of helped me kind of glean that out. And I think you guys have such a great day planned that you can touch on some of those things. That would be really great.
Can I share my buffalo analogy real quick?
Please do.
So one of the speakers that I went to, because I was really trying to glean, how do we launch this with staff? How do we get people excited for this? And one of the speakers I went to told a story about a cow and a buffalo in a field. And then they had an AI generated picture, which was amazing. But there's an impending storm that's coming the direction, and they called it the AI storm. And that the cow will run away from the storm and ends up getting more wet than not, because the storm and the cow are moving the same direction. So the cow's just getting soaking wet, and that's uncomfortable. Whereas the buffalo charges into the storm, gets a little bit wet, but wears the storm faster, and then doesn't come out quite as soggy and uncomfortable. And that's kind of where we're at with this new AI storm that's coming our direction, is that we can choose to be the cow and run away from it, and we're gonna end up just soaking wet, completely uncomfortable. Or we can choose to be the buffalo, which everybody was like, let's be buffalo, and run into the storm, get a little bit wet and a little bit uncomfortable, but then come out of it much better off. So.
My only comment is you have a great team here. And I'm looking forward to the 3rd of June.
It's the power of TSD.
Yeah.
We have like an amazing family and strong leaders and teachers, and it's awesome.
Stu?
Yeah, I came into this discussion with one big concern, and Marky, you pretty well took care of my question and my concern with the first thing that you said. My concern has to do with the impact of AI on creativity. And when you talked about a student using an AI-generated product to help come up with ideas and so on, as opposed to doing the work for the student or coming up with something that's very boilerplate, and a couple of the rest of you touched on that as well. So anyway, that took care of my concern about creativity and what the impact would be. We've talked quite a bit about the ways that AI will save teachers time. In general, once people are familiar with it, how will it cost teachers time, or will it? Does my question make sense?
I think up front there is time that it will cost more than what it gives you, because there is I want to say like finesse to how you have to ask AI to get it to do what you want. Like there is a way, and you have to kind of learn how you have to ask it questions and guidance, and being able to then bounce back. I mean, that's that critical thinking that we keep talking, is like, well, I didn't like that part, so I got to ask it to be like, okay, I didn't like sentence 3, can you change that one? To be able to learn that way of thinking is definitely new. But as soon as you start to kind of, how I've been trying to get my teachers on board is like, you got to have the thought of like, I wonder if AI can do this for me, and it's like, if you go and you fiddle with it for 5 minutes, it isn't giving you what I want, you move on to something else. But even like today, my instructional coach was like, hey, Michaela, you come here, I have an AI question. And she was like, I just have been wondering if it would do this for me. And, we brainstormed for a minute. And I was like, I've never thought of that before. You could try it. But again, at some point, is it easier to just go pull? She was looking for a data set for a fake data set from students that teachers could look at and analyze, like just as like practice. And I was like, she's like, or is it just easier to go pull 5 kids and, have them answer 5 questions for me? And I was like, I don't know, that's a great question, So as we're learning to grapple, there is a little bit of work and thought that goes into it. But ultimately, once you know the tools and you kind of start to get that pattern and rhythm down, the benefit is it does outweigh.
All right.
So.
And then my other question, Dawn asked something related to special ed. I didn't hear you talking at all about SEL. Or about how this might be useful for counselors. Are there implications in those kinds of areas? And if so, can you just give a quick explanation of what that might look like?
I think it's how you set it up. So the first time that you have many times you hear when you first experiment that it gives you an end product. And we're trying to shift the thinking to, you start the conversation with the chatbot to say, hey, I am so-and-so, I work at a school district, this is a little bit, you put in the website of the school district because you're not giving anything that the web doesn't already have. Here's my question, you are my thought partner. Your job is to not provide me an answer, but to push my thinking. And this is where I want you to push my thinking. So you're literally setting the parameters for how you want to interact with the chatbot. And I think that's the difference. So you could interact by saying, I have a particular problem, I would like to do some social emotional learning, this might be the content that we use, you're not putting in the content, but maybe the website, and let's talk about how to maybe create some lessons, some professional development, some questions, and you're my critical thinking friend. Those are the things that you have to put into the chatbot, because then it changes the interactions that you have. It's not about producing an end result. It's not about the product. It's about the conversation and learning that occurs when you're discussing this topic with the chatbot.
It's kind of related to what I was saying about what Marky said related to creativity.
Yep.
That's basically the same thing. And then counseling, what's the implication here for someone who's a counselor, who's working with kids who are
Magic School
struggling?
actually, in the admin features, has a restorative justice piece in there too, so
Or
you
an
can
SEL
go.
lesson creator in there.
And I would say we haven't dabbled with that much, because we do know that that's gonna require significant, it's gonna include information that we don't want students just putting into any old tool. But in St. Vrain, they use School AI, and so in School AI they have spaces, which is what Kelly was describing. And so when students, they talked about an instance where they have some students who have anxiety issues. And so the counselor or whoever has programmed that space to be for that student specifically. It's open all the time, and then when the student starts to feel anxious, they've given a prompt to the space already with the different methods that they've talked about with the student to help them with their anxiety. And so the student can say, I'm feeling anxious, and then it'll say, well, have you thought about this? Or, the
Have
things
you
that
taken
they've,
have you
your 5
notified
deep breaths
your
and,
5 surroundings, like
and
those
if you need to
things.
leave the classroom, what are the steps you need? Like it would prompt them with the things that the adult had pre-programmed it with.
Okay.
So.
Thanks, I appreciate that, because I think it's important that if there are implications beyond academics and beyond what is actually happening in the classroom related to learning, directly to learning, then let's hope that there might be some ideas related to things like affective learning and dealing with emotional issues and so on. Okay, thank you.
Which is why, back to Sheena's point, we need to, think about a tool so that we are not putting in PII and are more thoughtful about where those rich conversations can occur. Right now, I still think most people are doing it to produce a product or an end result.
Yeah, and that makes sense initially that you would do that, but there are future implications. Thank you. That's what I
Kelly,
wanted to-
thank you so much.
Of course.
This was wonderful.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it. It was
was.
challenging our thinking,
Yeah.
which is what we needed to have happen, so thank you very much.
Yeah.
All because of them.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Todd, I think you're next. It's bond polling results, is that correct?
It is work.
You're good.
All right.
Oh, okay. All right.
Ready to go. Okay. Hello again, Board of Education. Tonight we've, actually as I was getting ready for this, there's just some reflection. We've been talking about this since December. So this is kind of the summary of some next steps that'll get us to a point where we make some decisions. So in looking at what we've done here in the last month, as the board is aware, we put out a poll to the community. Staff just this morning got the review from the pollster that put this together. So we did that today. They're going to put together a summary for the board, executive summary, say here's a snapshot. And then we're going to put together 2+2 meetings in the next month so we can really dive into and understand the complexities. When you look at the data, it's on face value, that's what it is. But as we all know, with the political environment and all the other stressors of outside of our control, there's just some other complexities we need to work through. So that's really the goal. The 2+2 is to understand, one, the data, but then how do we use the data to get to an outcome, which we hope to get to on May 7th. So then on May 7th, we'll come together as this group and talk about the different options to the hope of a recommendation moving forward for either something in November, but that's what we'll help lay out between now and then, so we can come away with some direction. Because if it's one way, there's certain steps that everyone will need to take if we head in a certain direction in November or even the next November. So regardless of what we do, there's a lot that we have learned about communication pieces that will happen regardless. But obviously if there is something, an outcome in November that we see this November 25, there's additional pieces that layer on that have to happen pretty quick. So timing wise, we're still in a pretty good spot. And the consultant we're working with who does this agrees as well, we're in a pretty good spot. But we're at the time to where it's just there's recommendations that we'll need to make. So the goal is to take really this month, make sure the board understands the complexities in the data, so then ultimately we can make a recommendation in that May 7th meeting. And the recommendation is just the board wouldn't officially vote if it was until the June ish timeframe, but this is saying, okay, this looks like a direction to go. So a lot of information that we've led up to this point, but we just want to provide an update of that's where we're at, because there's been a lot of work in the background going on. So yeah, that is our plan for the next month. And I don't know if there's any questions that you have.
Yeah, just a quick comment, which sounds like a wise guy comment, but it really isn't intended that way.
Okay.
I wonder how we might use AI for the first 2 bullet points. You don't even need to respond.
Yep.
It just occurred to me as I was sitting here.
Okay. Are you doing the Thompson leadership?
I'm gonna be here, or there's.
Oh, Mike is
Just
doing it.
some- Mike's gonna-
Oh.
Yeah,
Come on
we're
up,
supporting
friends.
each other.
Okay,
yeah.
come on up, Mike.
All right.
Did you talk to Randy a little bit?
I did.
I thought you
Randy,
were.
a
Okay.
lot, yes.
Okay, that's good.
So
Thank you.
We got a plan. So
Okay.
Okay, so members of the board, Dr. Schaefer, Mike Hausman, Chief Communications Officer, wanted to talk to you a little bit about the concept discussion around Leadership Thompson. And I just want to stress up front, this is just designed to provide you with some information on what a program like this could look like if you decided this was a path you want to go down at some point. So let me start by connecting it obviously to our Strive 2025 district strategic plan, ensuring all stakeholders are engaged in effective two-way communication through a wide variety of strategies, utilizing culturally responsive recruitment, hiring and retention practices. We believe that a program like this is ultimately a really good way to market your school district also to potential employees in the community, and then providing transparency in the use of resources, of course, and just educating the community on what we do, how we do it, how we spend money, how we administer programs, and that sort of thing. So to start, what could a leadership Thompson model look like? So you're probably familiar, but if you're not, what I will describe it is that a leadership Thompson style model is basically an opportunity for people to learn about the district at a much deeper level than they would if they were serving on a committee or volunteering in a school a couple of times a week or something like that. It's really designed for people to take a deep dive into how the school district is organized, the programs we have, the challenges we have, how operations works, how finances work, and that whole thing. It's just designed to help to foster a strong sense of community and provide people with an opportunity to learn more than they would through a casual interaction with the district. Next slide, please. So possible structure. So a program could be open to all community members. Obviously, that's that whole process can be designed based on how you would want to design it. They could meet on a monthly basis, which would be pretty standard, generally for a couple hours in the morning or afternoon. So it's not an all-day thing. You're usually wanting to do it for like a set time of a few hours, either earlier or later, depending on what works best for folks. And then the big thing is that your meetings would be held in different locations each month. So they wouldn't all be held at like the admin building. You'd be rotating them around to different administrative buildings in the district, but especially schools, because it's a really good way for people to learn to get into buildings where they have never been in before and learn more about programs they've never seen and that sort of thing. Okay, next slide, please. Thanks, Lorelei. And then topics. This is something we would massage a little bit based on kind of the structure and stuff, but in general, these are kind of the key things you would hit. Obviously, the district structure, how we're built, how we operate. There's a lot of misconceptions, obviously, in the community about how a school district works and what makes up the parts of the district. So talking to them about that structure, obviously focusing on the academics, the programs we have in place, giving them in-depth information, letting them see firsthand what that looks like in a classroom, and how the kids are thriving in that. Operations, really talking to them about our buildings and facilities and maintenance and all the things that obviously have to go into making sure our buildings are available for kids each day and for our staff. Budgets, finances, intricacies of how it works at the state level and the federal level, and how that comes down into the local school districts, and what your role is, of course, in terms of governance, and what you do here in the school district. Athletics and activities, and then community partnerships, talking about our businesses and our nonprofits and our government entities that we're working with every day to provide a great experience for kids and also our community. Okay. Some of you may remember we had something that was similar to this called Explore Thompson, which ran for several years up until COVID, and then COVID shut many things down, and Explore Thompson was one of those. But this was similar. We met every month, and we did something similar around the district, and it was generally open for everybody to apply to if they wanted to go and stuff. So it's very similar to a program like that we did before. There are some other districts around us that are doing something similar. St. Vrain is probably the one just because of its proximity, the one that you hear about a lot. And then Douglas County also has one that's similar to this too. Next. All right. So I kind of zipped through that, but again, it was just designed to provide you with kind of an overview of what something like this could look like. Obviously, none of this is set in stone. We could design this program in any way that we wanted to, based on kind of what the goals are that we're trying to achieve. So,
Alexander, any questions?
So I guess, one of my questions would be that sort of like what would be the goals, which I think you talked about it a little bit at the beginning, but I think, for people to learn about it, so this wouldn't be like an advisory committee at all. It's just like learning about.
That's right. So a lot of districts will use them as ways to recruit people to serve on committees. A lot of people who come through this will become really interested in the district, and they'll eventually serve on committees. Some of them run for board slots and stuff, so it becomes kind of a recruiting tool in terms of getting people engaged and serving in that way. It can go a lot of different ways. Like with the Explore Thompson program, we had a lot of people who became volunteers, and because they'd see a program that they really liked and they'd watch it that way. It's kind of really what they want to do. And some just, their curiosity is satisfied, and they're like, that was great, thanks, and that's just kind of where they're at. But you'd be surprised. There's a lot of people actually that when they go through it, they find something that just really resonates with them, and it inspires them to do something else. So,
are people typically expected to is it a program that you go through the whole program, or do people can just kind of go 1 month and not the next, or what's sort of the expectation?
That's a great question. So the temptation for a lot of people will be to focus in on something specific you want to go to. In the past, what we've really focused on is trying to have people who are going to commit to the entire program. And the biggest reason why you do that is because, as you know, all that stuff is intertwined and related. And you can't have a discussion around budget and finances and not be having a discussion around academics and programs and activities and everything else. And so we really do emphasize that if you're going to do this, we really would like you to come. That's part of why you make the sessions short and easy for people to plan out. It's once a month. It's something that they can easily put on their calendar. You're going to have some people each month that miss your sessions just because of stuff that happens, which is fine, but you really do try to encourage that.
And it's intended to be like a 1 year.
A 1 year thing.
Okay.
Yep.
And I would just say, being part of a district that had this before, it's the personal connection. So it's not like a broadcast of just gonna learn. It's personal connections that are made that draw people into it. So they already have that personal connection that brings them into the group. So then they're invested on another level besides just, hey, you can learn. It's the connected. This is why you're here. This is what you can learn. So it's a deeper level that also, like Mike touched on, expands out to other committees and district pieces.
Okay, thank you.
Denise, questions?
I do think it's very important to understand our why if we're going to put something together. Are we using this to help influence that bond and mill, energy and momentum around it potentially? Is it really just opener? Be very transparent with the community. Or everybody else has fun, so we should have one too. So having solid goals behind it just will give it more legitimacy as we try to push topics and engage people. So that's all I have.
I'm excited about it. I do think, especially for our speakers, that's gonna be that helpful part of okay, if you still want me to talk about something that's this big, how do I get it into this big? It's helpful to know those things. And what came to my mind too is that we have so many great examples, right? Like to just have people go to something instead of talking about it. Like we have living examples of almost everything. And so one of the things I could see spinning out of the first year of this is some of the things that we might want to be inviting people in for it, as a whole, right? To like make sure that people know that we've got these great things happening. And because we hear that from our community a lot of like, oh, I didn't know you guys had that. I would love to win. And so like I think that there'll be a lot of noteworthy moments that would be really cool to think about expanding what we make available to people. I know we're constantly trying to do that, but like this is a group that will give us a lot of that as we think about it too, which will be really cool.
I don't have any questions. Stu?
I think what Denise said is really important in terms of establishing clear goals that people understand why the group has been created and what their responsibilities are as part of it. St. Vrain has done something like this for about 15 years. Douglas County is into, I think, the 3rd year. I've had the opportunity to talk to school board members from both of these districts about what it has meant to them. St. Vrain, where it's gone on for so long, they believe it's a critical part of who they are as a district. Many school board members have come through the program, and there's a great deal of understanding and information already out in the community as a result of what they call Leadership St. Vrain. Douglas County, I think, is into maybe the 3rd year, perhaps the 4th of doing this. One of the reasons they did it was to increase some solidarity and some understanding between different facets of the community. And a school board member that I know quite well has said it has really started to achieve that. That just in a very few years, by encouraging people who represent various political viewpoints, different demographics, etc., to come together and learn together about the school district has been an important part of a change. So I'm really excited about this. I think it's something that is very important. We're returning to something that we used to do and maybe just changing the goals a little bit. So I think it's terrific.
Amy?
Questions have been asked and answered. Thank you.
Yep.
What do you need from us? Like for
We need direction. So at this point, I'm looking for direction from the board. If this is something that the board would like us to contemplate launching, certainly we want to be hyper-focused and specific on goals and outcomes and all those other pieces. We do have a few exemplary practices, I believe, in other districts that we can draw from easily. We've also done this well in the past, but I didn't want to get too far ahead of the board, so we wanted to provide you with just high enough level information, and then if the board would like to direct staff to work on this, we will set on that now. So that's what I'm looking for.
So I would think that it would be more reasonable for us to start it next year versus right now with the new superintendent coming on board, and that we need to, but I would think that it's a great thing to do, but just wait until we have that started.
So your typical cycle would be, I would say, September through like April, maybe May, depending on how you match your stuff out. Launching in September is beneficial, I would say, over August, because at August it's the beginning of school and things are very, very hectic with schools getting up and going, and then also with parents who are participating too, and then getting and going. So that's the time frame.
That's my thought anyway.
Yeah.
I agree that that's makes sense in terms of a launch, but I think we should make a decision as to whether we're committed to doing this as a board, because I think they can, the team that's planning it can be planning it, should be planning it for the rest of this school year for a launch in the fall, as opposed to waiting until fall to actually start planning for it. That's my opinion.
Yeah, this topic and then the next one, which I'll do quickly, really are sort of need to be planned now. You will have a new superintendent coming in, but it will take the superintendent some time to acclimate, and so we're at that juncture. So I'm looking for board direction. We don't necessarily have to encumber the incoming superintendent, but if, for example, if the board had interest in launching this in September, I would recommend starting work on planning now as opposed to waiting until July 1st when the new superintendent comes on and staff's not really around.
I mean, I think it sounds to me like we're interested in pursuing it.
And I think even since the goals was kind of the overarching thing, and there are some good examples out there, it might be really helpful to hone in on like 3 simple ones from some of those best examples, or even what we did before. I mean, if we feel really good about that, there's no reason that we need to rewrite those.
Right.
You know, I mean, let's keep it simple wherever we can.
Yeah, we generally covered 2 topics per session last time, and usually one of the topics was based on the site where we were at, and the other one was something that was closely related to it. So for example, we would do one at the transportation depot, and so there was a big thing on transportation, and then something else that came in on that. We would do one at like a school with like with one of their prep kitchens and do nutrition services, plus maybe their program at the building there or something. So.
St. Vrain has invited us to attend a monthly meeting, and here we are at the 1st of April. I don't know when their monthly meetings are, what time of the month, but there would certainly be an opportunity for some of us if we wanted to go in May and maybe in April, depending on what their April date is.
Okay.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
You bet.
Next item is 6.5 student representation on the Board of Education.
Okay, I'm gonna.
Thank you.
Just take one and pass it to you. So the board has expressed some interest in considering the possibility of having a student representative on the Board of Education. So everyone should have a packet. Yep. So I did some research, and believe it or not, the best example of policy, which is anchored in policy JIBB, comes right from our neighbor Weld RE5J. So like I said, I surveyed a lot. I could have brought you a lot, but this to me was the best of. And
so where is Weld RE5J?
That would be Johnstown.
Johnstown Milligan. Yeah.
So there's expectations and responsibilities of the student board representative. I'm not going to read them all to you, but I would draw your attention to numbers 1, 4, 5, 8, and 12. 1, 4, 5, 8, and 12 seemed really interesting to me. In terms of what their involvement is, I do want to say that student representatives are not voting members. They do represent student voice. Students can play a variety of different roles. This isn't new. Many school districts have student representatives. Some of them have just the role of sort of like reporting out, like a student council report, like this is what we're doing in our high schools. Others take a far more formal and active role, but in no way does their vote, quote unquote, count, but they do engage and participate. Most student representatives I've seen, it is as few as 1 student. Some have 2, some have 6, some have a committee, so there's different ways of doing it. But this gives you a little bit of an idea of what it could look like in policy. And then the second part of this is the application process, and how does one go ahead and solicit applications and then going through selection. So the reason why I'm bringing this forward now is to see, first, is there board interest in pursuing this? Secondly, if there is interest, now would be the time to begin developing this and then selecting an individual for next year. There is value if you choose a student representative to actually join you, let's say in a summer retreat, when you're calibrating and getting to know the superintendent. You want to sort of codify their involvement as well as their comfort level with the board. I also recognize that there's a board election in November, so you can actually wait to the seating of the, there's no like set timing, but it's really for your consideration. We've informally talked about it in your one-on-one check-in, so I'm bringing this forward now at the working session for more public awareness of this, but really wanted to gauge not only your continued interest, I'm more interested in, is this something that you would like us to move forward with?
I guess we just kind of go around and, Denise, what do you think?
I'm on board with the idea. I do think it would be hard to have one or two, I mean, you know, they have one high school.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah.
I don't know how, you know, we could, you know, cover, you know, the vast geographic or, you know, diversity of this district with one or two students.
Don?
Similarly, that's what I keep coming back to every time we think about this, and I think every CASB I went to stuff with the students that are presenting their different recommendations, and there's good things from all of them. And for me, it's been really important to like think of the Breakfast Club analogy, is that like often if you get one representative, it's hard for them to be the voice of everybody, even if they try really hard. Mm-hmm. And so that then makes me think of a committee instead of a board rep, because I do think having the board be informed by student voice is different from having the superintendent be informed by student voice. I mean, I do think it's really cool to have a student representative, but it's really tough to have somebody who would be what we need them to be as one or even two people. And then if we open it up to every high school, then we have 5 new people on the board, and that's a significant increase, even if they're not voting members. And that becomes really tough. So.
At first I said, because this has been brought back and forth a couple times, and I've said, no, I'm not interested. I'm really not totally interested in it, because I feel that we have to have 5, because I would not go for having one person be the student then and carry that through. I don't know what their purpose would be then to be there, because there's no way they could communicate it. So I really want to know the reason why we were going to do it, and I'd want us to be very cautious on how we go about, because 5 is a lot, and you know, then somebody said, well, why don't you do a junior and a senior? Well, that doubles it to 10, and so, you know, for the first year you have 10, and then the next year that junior, but then you're still caught within it. So I don't know. I think there's value in it. I just don't see the logistics of it being done well at our district because of our size. That's my Stu.
I attended a CASB session with students from 2 or 3 different districts that have done this, and the one that comes to my mind, I believe it's Adams 12, which is a fairly good sized district.
Yes,
and my recollection is, in regard to a district that has a number of high schools, my recollection is that there was a junior and a senior. The junior represented one school, the senior represented another school, and then it rotated among the high schools as, for example, as the senior graduated, the junior would move up, and a junior then from another school would come in. So there wouldn't be constant representation from all the schools, but all the schools, as however long it would take to go through the rotation, did have representation. They've done this, I believe, for a number of years. So in terms of how well it works, they must feel it works well enough to be continuing to do it. And Mark, I think it was Adams 12, but I'm not positive that that was the district. So if we decide we want to investigate further, we could look into how they actually do it, and are they doing it.
We actually did talk to Adams.
Okay. So I think it's a possibility. That's what I would say about it.
Amy?
I love the idea of student voice. I go back to that logistical piece, and I go back to the equitable piece. Like, we rotate school sites. I mean, it's late at night sometimes, and sometimes the representation that we would get, we would know what we would get, right? And so what you just said about a committee, or like an advisory board or something, I think that we could get more diverse representation from, like, we wouldn't have to just have one student from each school, like 5. We could have like 2 from each school, and they, and then they could talk to their, I don't know, but, and then somehow they could give us a report, or, we could ask them to go into your school and get that information, talk to different groups at the schools, because again, I get concerned with, we won't hear from all voices, we will only hear from certain voices that can do this. It's hard to do this, and so while I want student voice, I think if we're gonna do it, we need to be very intentional with how we go about. I don't know that having a board representative, a student board representative, like here at the meetings with us, and then at CASB, and like all of that, I think we need more of sort of what you do is a student advisory group. I don't know, just what that would look like.
Alexandra, your thoughts?
I think having a student like sitting with us on the board is very different than an advisory group. And I think there's a lot of value to having the former, having a student sitting with us and being, a member of the board, even if they don't vote, or a student or 2. I think 2, is a reasonable number. I think 5 is not a reasonable number. I sort of like what Stu said about
the rotating
through to get the different schools. I appreciate what you say about, sort of the equity piece and the, we know there's kids who are better equipped to be able to do this than others. But there's us who are better equipped to do this than others, right? Yeah. And so, I think that's sort of the nature of it. I still think even if it's not everybody, I still think there's a lot of value from having a student or 2 always consistently sharing and being part of things. I know at like the CASB, things, my favorite thing every single time is the group, is hearing from the students. And while I, get a chance to talk to 5 or 10 students who obviously do not represent every district in Colorado, it still gives you a taste of what they're talking about and what they're thinking about and what they think about things. So I would be much more in favor of having like an actual student sitting on the board, or two students rather than an advisory group, if we can figure out how to make it work.
What I would leave the board with just to think about is would you just to extend a little bit on what I heard from Stu and Alexandra, because I also feel like there would be value in having a single student or maybe 2 on the board max. Are you looking for a student voice, or are you looking for a Berthoud High voice? Because ultimately the student member will provide you with student perspective. It should be agnostic to the school they go to. If they're truly giving you student voice, then that's what they're going to give you, that perspective. And if they're really good, then they may, in this district, they're getting academic credit, so maybe it's a class and maybe they are soliciting feedback from the other high schools and talking with kids. There's a lot of possibility,
Yeah.
but I do feel like there's value in allowing a student to gel with you and work with you and actually be a board member as opposed to a visitor or rotation or like a committee. Just a thought.
It's been 3 or 4 years ago since I attended this session, but what's going around up here is that the 2 student representatives from, as I said, I think it's Adams 12, they actually solicit feedback in some way from the other high schools. I imagine it must be done in writing. How it works, I don't know, but I recall, do you recall that too, Amy, that was part of the discussion, so that even though there were 2 kids from 2 different high schools, and maybe there are 10 kids in 10 high schools in the district, they were attempting to get feedback from the other kids that they would incorporate into some of the discussion topics. And I'm sorry, it's been too long ago, I don't remember how exactly that worked, but that's going around up
Well,
here.
and I would say too, you know, knowing a bunch of high schoolers, they know what's going on at the other schools. A lot of them went to middle school together and know each other. They talk to each other. They follow each other on social media. I mean, my son at Loveland High School can tell me, within 5 seconds of when there's a fight at Mountain View High School, and and vice versa, right? And good things too. But they know. I mean, our district is big, but it's not huge, and they interact with each other, I think.
So I think you describe what happens with the students that come from Bill Reed, and that has always been different from the students that come from Walt Clark.
That's true.
Or any really of our other schools. Berthoud is the one that gets divided
Yeah,
up, and then they
right.
do have friends, and so
Yeah.
it is a significant difference.
That's a good point.
And I will say that it was actually probably the student you're thinking of who was talking about. I think was also in Adams 12. I can see her face almost.
It was a girl.
Uh-huh.
I remember that.
And actually it was something she said that made me go, oh, that's why I'm worried about having people represent themselves. It was something she said that actually made me more concerned, not less. And that is definitely something I keep coming back to every time. And I agree with you, like, these 2 things are not the same by any means, but we almost always get the same sort of people who can do this, adults and students. And even when they try their very best to be representatives, it can be very difficult for them to, adults too, to not know something that they're not familiar with, which is part of why we're talking about trying to have student voice. And that's something that I just keep struggling with. And I know it wasn't anything specific, but there was just something that stuck with me that went, she's not representing everybody. She's trying, she's working very hard at it, but she's not doing it. And that's one of the things that sticks with me. Yeah, I mean, I want it, but I also really worry about that. So.
Okay.
Does that give you some?
There you go.
Thanks for your feedback.
Does that give you some direction?
Yeah, it gives me something, and I'll unpack and process.
Okay.
All right. Oh, I have to do this. The meeting's adjourned.